The night Jace Holloway walked into his ex's engagement party, he never imagined he'd leave with the attention of the most powerful woman in the city, or that it would nearly destroy them both. This is a story about a single father who learned that sometimes the most dangerous risk isn't falling in love. It's choosing to stay when the world tells you to run. If you're ready for a story about second chances, impossible choices, and the courage it takes to be seen, stick with me until the end. And don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Let's begin. The amber glow of this Riverside Estate's crystal chandeliers cast long shadows across perfectly manicured lawns, where 200 guests in designer cocktail attire celebrated what everyone agreed was the union of the year. Jace Holloway stood near the western terrace, nursing a club soda and checking his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. His babysitter's rate jumped to time and a half after 9 o'clock, and Nora had already texted him twice, once to ask if she could have ice cream, and once to send a photo of their cat wearing sunglasses. He shouldn't have come. The invitation had arrived 6 weeks ago, cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing that probably cost more than his monthly grocery bill. Claire Whitmore and Marcus Ashford request the pleasure of your company. He'd almost thrown it away. Almost. But Claire had called him personally, her voice carrying that peculiar mixture of guilt and determination that he'd come to recognize during their final year together. I know it's awkward, Jace, but Marcus and we want to do this right. Clean slate. No unfinished business. Translation. She wanted proof that he'd moved on. Proof that their failed relationship hadn't left him broken. Proof that she could walk down an aisle without the ghost of what she'd left behind haunting the edges of her peripheral vision. So he'd hired Mrs. Chen for the evening, pulled his only good suit from the back of the closet, and driven 40 minutes across the city to stand in a garden full of people who smiled at him with the careful politeness reserved for awkward reminders of the bride's past. Jace Holloway. A man in his 50s approached, hand extended. Tom Bradford. I work with Marcus at the firm. Heard you're an architect? Trying to be, Jace replied, shaking his hand. Still working my way up. Tough field. Very competitive. Tom's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Claire mentioned you have a daughter? Must be challenging, balancing single parenthood with career ambitions. There it was, the polite probe, the gentle reminder that he was the one who'd been left holding diapers and daycare schedules while Claire built her public relations empire and found someone more suitable. We manage, Jace said evenly. Nora's amazing, makes everything worth it. Tom nodded, already scanning the crowd for more interesting conversation. Well, good luck with everything, the architecture thing. He drifted away, and Jace felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the one that came from being evaluated and found wanting, from being someone's cautionary tale, from standing in spaces where everyone else seemed to fit except him. His phone buzzed. His sister, Maya. Maya, how's the torture chamber? Jace. Surviving. How's the new job? Maya. Amazing. I got the promotion. Department head. Jace. Maya, that's incredible. Call you in 10? He stepped away from the terrace, moving toward the quieter eastern gardens where rose hedges created natural alcoves of shadow and privacy. He needed to hear his sister's voice, to remember that there were people in the world who knew his worth without needing to measure it against square footage and salary brackets. The phone rang twice before Maya picked up, her voice bright with excitement. Jace, can you believe it? After 3 years of fighting for every scrap of recognition, you earned it, he said, genuine warmth flooding through him. Nobody works harder than you. Nobody deserves it more. They talked for 8 minutes, about her new responsibilities, about Nora's upcoming school play, about the small triumphs that made up the architecture of a good life. Maya had been his anchor through the divorce, through the terrifying early months of solo parenting, through the nights when he'd wondered if he was failing at everything that mattered. You sound better, Maya observed, less like you're attending your own funeral. The garden helps, fewer witnesses to my social obsolescence. You're not obsolete, you're just surrounded by assholes who measure success in stock portfolios instead of character. She paused. You didn't have to go, you know. I wanted to, for Nora. She still asks why her mom and I don't love each other anymore. I wanted to prove... He stopped, searching for words. That endings don't have to be bitter. that people can move forward. You're a better person than me, Maya said softly. I would have sent a cactus as a wedding gift. He laughed, the sound surprising him. I'll call you tomorrow. Go celebrate. You deserve champagne and inappropriate amounts of cake. Love you, little brother. Love you too. He ended the call and stood for a moment in the garden's quiet, letting the tension drain from his shoulders. The party noise felt distant here, muffled by hedges and old stone walls. In the fading light, he could almost pretend he was somewhere else entirely, somewhere he belonged. That's when he heard her voice. It came from the other side of a particularly dense wall of climbing roses, low and raw, carrying the kind of vulnerability that only emerges when someone believes they're alone. I wish someone looked at me the way you speak to her. Jace froze. The voice was female, cultured, with an edge of something that sounded like exhaustion, or maybe resignation. He should walk away. This was clearly a private moment, someone's unguarded confession caught between the thorns and shadows. But something in the tone held him. It wasn't self-pity, it was something more dangerous, recognition. The sound of someone acknowledging a truth they'd been avoiding. Ma'am? A second voice, male, professional. Your guests are asking for you. Mr. Ashford's father wants to propose a toast. Of course he does. A pause. Give me 2 minutes. I need to fix my face. Footsteps retreated. Jace knew he should move, should announce his presence or slip away before the moment became more awkward. Instead, he found himself stepping around the hedge wall, into a small circular courtyard lit by antique lanterns. A woman sat alone on a stone bench, her back to him, shoulders rigid with the kind of control that came from years of practice. She wore a tailored dress in deep emerald, her dark hair pulled back in a style that probably had a French name he'd never learned. Even from behind, she radiated authority, the kind that filled boardrooms and commanded attention without effort. The party's that way, she said without turning around, unless you're also hiding from the mandatory social performance. Her voice was steadier now, the vulnerability locked away behind professional polish. But Jace had heard the other version, the real one, and something in him responded to it. I'm hiding from being the bride's consolation prize, he admitted. The ex-boyfriend who showed up to prove he's not broken. You? She turned then, and Jace felt the world tilt slightly on its axis. He recognized her immediately. Anyone in the city would. Vivian Cross, CEO of Cross Dynamics, the tech meets infrastructure company that had revolutionized urban planning systems across North America. Her face appeared in Forbes articles and TED Talk promotions. She was 38, brilliant, and reportedly worth somewhere north of $800 million. And up close, she looked exhausted. Not tired from work. There was something else in her eyes, a weariness that came from somewhere deeper than late nights and early meetings. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite name, something between surprise and recognition, and something that might have been relief. You're Jace Holloway, she said. It wasn't a question. How did you... Claire mentioned you might attend. She's protective of her narrative, wanted to make sure I understood the context. Vivian's smile was sharp, knowing. Apparently you're the good man who got left behind, the one who proved she couldn't have it all. The accuracy of it stung. And you're Vivian Cross, the woman who definitely has it all. Is that what it looks like? She gestured to the bench. Sit, please. I'm tired of people standing at attention around me like I'm about to conduct a performance review. Jace hesitated, then sat, leaving careful space between them. This close, he could see the fine lines around her eyes, the tension in her jaw, the way her hands gripped her clutch, like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. I heard what you said, he admitted quietly. Before, about wishing someone looked at you a certain way. Most people would have been embarrassed. Vivian just looked at him with those intelligent, weary eyes and said, Then you heard the truest thing I've said all week. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's refreshing, actually. Someone knowing I'm not just the quarterly earnings reports and strategic initiatives. She studied him for a long moment. You called your sister. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was already here. But I heard you talking to her. The way your voice changed, like she'd pulled you back from somewhere dark. She got a promotion. She's been fighting for it for years. And you celebrated her like it was your own victory. Do you know how rare that is? Genuine joy for someone else's success? Vivian's laugh was quiet, almost bitter. In my world, every advancement is measured against your own. Every win is someone else's potential threat. That sounds lonely. It is. She said it simply, without self-pity, just fact. I've spent 15 years building an empire, made myself invaluable, indispensable, untouchable, and somewhere along the way I became inaccessible, even to myself. Jace didn't know what to say to that. This was Vivian Cross, legendary CEO, sitting in a garden confessing loneliness like it was something she'd just discovered the word for. "Why are you at my ex's engagement party?" he asked instead. "Marcus Ashford's father sits on my board. This is networking disguised as celebration. Everything in my life is strategic." She looked toward the lights and music spilling from the estate. "I've been to 100 parties like this. Beautiful people, beautiful lies, everyone performing their best life for an audience of rivals and allies who can't tell the difference." But you heard me talking to my sister and thought that maybe someone here understood what it felt like to be the one who shows up even when it hurts, to keep trying even when you're not sure why anymore. Vivian met his eyes. "Your ex left you, didn't she? Chose the easier path?" "She chose herself. I can't fault her for that. Most people would be bitter. I have a 6-year-old daughter who watches how I handle disappointment. Bitterness isn't a legacy I want to leave her." Something shifted in Vivian's expression, a crack in the careful armor. "What's her name?" "Nora. She's—" Jace pulled out his phone, showing Vivian the photo Nora had sent earlier, their gray tabby cat wearing pink sunglasses. "She's obsessed with making the cat into a social media influencer. I don't have the heart to tell her our cat has charisma issues." Vivian's laugh was real this time, startled and genuine. "She looks like you, same stubborn chin." "That's what my sister says. And the stubbornness is definitely genetic." He pocketed his phone. "I should get back. Mrs. Chen charges premium rates after 9, and Nora has a talent for negotiating extended bedtimes." "Wait." Vivian's hand moved toward him, then stopped, hovering in the space between them. "I know this is irregular, but would you consider having coffee with me? Somewhere no one knows my name or my net worth or which senators have my private number?" Jace looked at her, really looked, saw past the designer dress and the legendary reputation to the woman who'd sat alone in a garden, confessing loneliness to the darkness. The woman who'd recognized something in the way he spoke to his sister, who'd asked about his daughter like she mattered. Every rational part of his brain screamed warning. This was Vivian Cross. She existed in a stratosphere so far above his world that they might as well be different species. Coffee would lead to complications, to expectations he couldn't meet, to another situation where he was evaluated and found wanting. But he thought about Nora's question. "Why did you and Mommy stop loving each other?" And his answer, "Sometimes people are afraid to be themselves around each other." He looked at Vivian and saw someone who was afraid of exactly that, being herself, being seen, being something other than the carefully constructed legend. "I know a place," he said slowly, "called Rosie's, in the East District. They have terrible coffee and amazing pie, and I guarantee nobody there reads Forbes." Vivian's smile transformed her face. "When? Tuesday? Around 2? I have a site meeting in the morning, but after that, I'll be there." She stood, smoothing her dress, the CEO armor sliding back into place like muscle memory. But her eyes remained different, warmer, more alive. "Thank you, Jace, for not treating me like a quarterly report. Thank you for not treating me like a cautionary tale." She started to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, your ex made a terrible mistake. Anyone who had what you're offering and walked away is a fool." Before he could respond, she was gone, disappearing into the party lights like she'd never been there at all. Jace sat for another moment in the garden, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. He'd come here to prove he'd moved on, to close a door on his past. Instead, he might have just opened a window to something far more dangerous. His phone buzzed. "Nora." "Dad, when are you coming home? Mr. Whiskers is giving me judgmental looks." Jace. "Leaving now, sweetheart. Be home in 30. Nora. "Did you have fun at the party?" He looked toward where Vivian had vanished, then typed, Jace, you know what? I actually did. The drive home took 45 minutes through evening traffic, but Jace barely noticed. His mind kept returning to the garden, to Vivian's voice when she'd dropped the performance, to the way she'd looked at Nora's photo like it represented something she'd forgotten existed. Mrs. Chen was reading on the couch when he arrived, Nora theoretically asleep upstairs. He paid her, added a generous tip, and walked her to her car with the kind of careful courtesy that had become second nature. Then he climbed the stairs to Nora's room, where she was definitely not asleep, reading under the covers with a flashlight. Busted, she said cheerfully, pushing back the blanket. Monumentally busted. He sat on the edge of her bed. You're supposed to be dreaming about tomorrow's math test. Nobody dreams about math, Dad. That's scientifically impossible. She studied his face with the uncomfortable perception that 6-year-olds sometimes possessed. You look different. Did something happen? I met someone interesting. Like a friend? Maybe. I don't know yet. Nora considered this seriously. Is it weird being friends with people at Mommy's party? A little weird, he admitted, but sometimes good things are weird. Like asparagus ice cream? Nobody said asparagus ice cream was good, Nora. Uncle Robert did. Uncle Robert also thinks cargo shorts are fashionable. We can't trust all his opinions. She giggled, then yawned, the day finally catching up with her. Jace tucked her in properly, kissed her forehead, and turned off the flashlight. Dad? Her voice was sleepy. I'm glad you went. To the party. You seemed sad before. I'm not sad anymore, sweet girl. Good. Because Mr. Whiskers and I have an extensive entertainment schedule planned, and we need you in optimal dad mode. He left her door cracked open, light from the hallway spilling into her room the way she preferred, and went downstairs to his office, the converted spare bedroom where he kept his drafting table and the architectural models of projects he hoped to build someday. On his desk, a half-finished proposal for a community arts center sat abandoned. The Riverside Community Foundation had put out a request for proposals 2 months ago, and Jace had been working on it in stolen hours between Nora's bedtime and his own exhaustion. It was a long shot. He was competing against established firms with portfolios full of completed projects and connections he didn't have. But the brief had spoken to something in him. A space for community gathering, artistic expression, and intergenerational connection. A building that feels like possibility. He'd sketched dozens of variations, trying to capture that feeling in glass and steel and carefully planned sightlines. A space that welcomed instead of intimidated, that made people feel seen instead of evaluated. Now he looked at his drawings with fresh eyes, remembering Vivian sitting alone in a garden, confessing exhaustion. What would a building look like that made someone like her feel safe enough to be herself? His phone was still in his pocket. He pulled it out, stared at it for a long moment, then opened a new text message. The number had appeared mysteriously in his contacts sometime after the party. No name, just digits. But he knew who it belonged to. He typed, "This is probably against some kind of social protocol, but I'm looking forward to Tuesday. Jace." He almost deleted it. Almost. Then pressed send before he could second-guess himself into paralysis. The response came 3 minutes later. Unknown number. I've been refreshing my phone like a teenager waiting for concert tickets. I'm looking forward to it too. V. Jace. V? Unknown. Number. If I save my number under Vivian Cross Billionaire CEO, someone will eventually read over your shoulder and will be on page 6 by morning. V works. It makes me feel mysterious. Jace. You are mysterious. You're also supposed to be at a party right now. V. I left early, claimed a strategic headache. Marcus's father was disappointed, but he'll recover. What are you doing? Jace. Working on a proposal for a community center. Probably a waste of time. I'm competing against firms that actually have track records. V. Send me your portfolio. Jace. What? No, that's not why I texted you. V. I know, but I'm curious. And I have 2 hours before my next conference call with Singapore. And I'd rather look at buildings designed by someone who actually cares about humans than review another acquisition brief. Jace. Are you always this direct? V. Only when I'm not performing. You should try it, the honesty thing. It's addictive. Jace stared at his phone, then at his portfolio, the carefully curated collection of school projects and the handful of small residential jobs he'd managed to land. It wasn't impressive, not by her standards, but she'd asked. And something about the way she'd phrased it, buildings designed by someone who actually cares about humans, made him think she might actually mean it. He uploaded the PDF to a cloud drive and sent her the link. Jace, don't judge the early stuff too harshly. I was young and thought glass curtain walls solved everything. V. Everyone goes through a glass curtain wall phase. It's like a rite of passage. I'll be kind. Jace. Now I'm terrified. V. Good. Fear keeps us humble. See you Tuesday, Jace. He set his phone down, his heart doing that complicated thing again. Outside his window, the neighborhood was quiet, streetlights casting familiar shadows across familiar lawns. Inside, his daughter slept safely. His cat judged him from the top of the bookshelf, and somewhere across the city, one of the most powerful women in North America was looking at his architectural drawings. The universe had a strange sense of humor. Tit. Tuesday arrived with unseasonable rain and a site meeting that ran 20 minutes over. Jace arrived at Rosie's diner at 2:17, wet and anxious, to find Vivian already there, sitting in a corner booth wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater that probably cost more than his monthly rent, but looked deliberately understated. She'd pulled her hair back in a ponytail, wore minimal makeup, and was reading something on her phone with an expression of deep concentration. Without the armor of designer suits and professional styling, she looked younger, more accessible, more human. She glanced up as he approached, and her face transformed with a smile that made his heart stumble. "You're late," she said. "I was beginning to think you'd reconsidered." Site meeting ran over. Contractor wanted to debate load-bearing walls for 20 minutes. He slid into the booth across from her. "I'm sorry, I should have—" "Jace, breathe, it's fine. I ordered you coffee even though you said it was terrible here. Turns out you were right, it's magnificently terrible. I'm on my third cup." A waitress appeared, Rosie herself, 70-something, with opinions about everything. "This your friend, Jace?" "Yes, ma'am. Rosie, this is V. V. Rosie owns this establishment and makes the best cherry pie in the state." "Flattery and truth," Rosie said approvingly. "I like him, honey. You could do worse." Vivian's eyes sparkled. "I'm beginning to see that." Rosie left them with the menus they didn't need and a knowing look that made Jace's ears warm. "So," Vivian said, wrapping her hands around her terrible coffee, "I read your portfolio." Jace's stomach dropped. "And? And you have a gift for creating spaces that feel intentional. Your residential projects, especially the renovation for that family with the disabled daughter, you didn't just modify the space for accessibility. You reimagined the entire flow so that accessibility became elegance. The ramps aren't afterthoughts. They're architectural features that make the whole house better." He stared at her. "You notice that?" "I notice everything. It's my superpower and my curse." She pulled out her phone, showing him notes she'd made. "But here's what concerns me. You're limiting yourself. These proposals you've submitted to larger firms, you're trying to fit into their aesthetic instead of leading with your own vision." "I'm trying to get hired. Nobody wants a junior architect who thinks they know better than the people with decades of experience." "The people with decades of experience are building the same boring glass boxes they built in 2005. You're thinking about light and movement and emotional impact." She leaned forward, intensity replacing casual conversation. "Your community center proposal, the one you mentioned, I want to see it." "Vivian." "V, please." "Vivian is for board meetings and hostile journalists." "V?" The name felt strange in his mouth, intimate. "I can't show you that. It would be ethical?" "You're right. I'm not connected to the Riverside Foundation officially, and I wouldn't interfere with their selection process." Her smile turned mischievous. "But I can be interested in your work as a private citizen who appreciates good architecture. Show me what you're building." "I'm not building it. I'm proposing it. There's a significant difference." "Show me anyway." So he did. Pulled out his tablet and showed her the renderings, the floor plans, the elevation studies. Explained his thinking about sight lines and natural light, about creating spaces that invited instead of intimidated, about the importance of thresholds, those in-between moments when someone decides whether a building is for them or not. Vivian listened with complete focus, asking sharp questions that forced him to articulate choices he'd made intuitively. She challenged his material selections, questioned his circulation patterns, pushed him to explain why certain walls curved when straight lines would have been cheaper. And somewhere in the middle of defending his decision to use reclaimed wood for the main lobby, Jace realized he was having more fun than he'd had in months. "You're enjoying this," Vivian observed, "watching me interrogate your design choices." "You're making me better," he admitted. "Every question forces me to think deeper." That's what good collaboration looks like. People who push you to articulate and defend your vision until it becomes sharper, clearer, more itself. She paused. "I don't get that often. Most people either agree with everything I say or fight me on principle. Nobody engages honestly." "What about friends? Family?" Her expression shuddered slightly. "I have a brother in London. We talk quarterly. My parents divorced when I was 12. Very civilized, very strategic. They divided assets and children with equal precision." She traced the rim of her coffee cup. "I learned early that relationships are transactions. You provide value, you receive value. When the equation stops balancing, people leave. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. It's realistic. It's lonely." "Yes." She met his eyes. "It's that too." Rosie appeared with cherry pie, 2 plates, extra forks. "You both look like you need sugar and wisdom. I'm providing the sugar. The wisdom you'll have to figure out yourselves." After she left, Vivian took a bite and made a sound that was almost obscene. "Oh my God, this is criminally good." "Told you." They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, the rain outside creating a cocoon of gray light and intimacy. The diner was mostly empty. A few regulars at the counter, a young couple in another booth. Nobody paid them any attention. Nobody recognized Vivian as the woman whose face graced business magazines and tech conference keynotes. Here, she was just V. A woman eating pie and asking questions about architecture like it mattered. "Tell me about Nora," she said suddenly. "How are you managing? Single parenthood and career ambitions? That's not easy." "It's not. But she's the reason I keep trying. I want her to see that hard things are worth doing, that failure isn't fatal, that you can lose everything you thought you needed and still build something beautiful." He paused. Her mother left when she was 3. Just decided one day that motherhood and marriage weren't aligned with her life goals. I can't fault her for knowing what she wanted, but it broke something in you. It broke something in Nora. She still asks why mommy doesn't visit more. Why she's not like other kids' moms who come to school plays and pack lunches with encouraging notes. Jace pushed pie around his plate. "Claire, my ex from the party. She was different. We grew apart naturally. It hurt, but it wasn't a betrayal. Nora's mom, she promised things and then erased herself from our lives like we were a failed project." Vivian was quiet for a long moment. "How do you not become bitter?" "I don't have the energy for bitter, and Nora's watching. If I teach her that people who hurt you deserve eternal resentment, what kind of adult does she become? A realistic one? A lonely one?" He looked at her directly. "Like someone else I know." She flinched but didn't look away. "Touché. I'm sorry, that was true. Don't apologize for truth, Jace. It's the only thing worth anything." She set down her fork. "I've had 3 serious relationships in my adult life. One was with a colleague who wanted my connections more than my company. One was with a man who proposed after 6 months and then ran when he realized I wasn't going to quit my job to plan weddings and charity galas. And one," she paused, "one was with someone I genuinely loved, who loved me back, but couldn't handle the pressure of being with someone constantly in the public eye. Every argument became tomorrow's gossip. Every private moment was one security breach away from going viral. We lasted 14 months before he called it emotional terrorism and left. The thing is, he wasn't wrong. Being with me is complicated. There's no privacy, no normal dates, no quiet Sunday mornings at farmers markets. Everything is strategy and optics and potential liability." She met his eyes. "So I stopped trying, built walls instead of bridges, and told myself it was power instead of loneliness." The rain outside intensified, drumming against the diner's windows. Jace thought about Nora, about the way she asked impossible questions and deserved honest answers, about the way Claire had looked at him during those final months, with guilt and pity and relief that she'd found a way out. "What if," he said slowly, "we just tried being honest with each other? No performance, no strategy, just two people who are tired of pretending they're not lonely. Is that what this is? I don't know what this is, but I know I haven't felt this interested in anything in years, and it's terrifying." Vivian's smile was small, fragile. "I read your portfolio 6 times. I have my assistant worried that I'm developing a concerning obsession with mid-scale residential architecture." "That is concerning? You should probably seek help." "I'm trying. That's why I'm here, eating criminally good pie with a man who makes me want to be honest." She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of his. "I don't have a roadmap for this, Jace. I don't know how to be casual or normal or anything other than all in, and I can't promise this won't get complicated." He looked at her hand, then slowly covered it with his own. Her fingers were cold from the rain, elegant and strong. "I have a 6-year-old, a struggling career, and a cat with charisma issues. Complicated is my baseline." "Then maybe we're perfectly matched." They sat like that for a moment, hands touching across terrible coffee and excellent pie, while rain created percussion against glass and Rosie hummed something off-key behind the counter. Jace's phone buzzed, a text from his sister. "Maya, how's the coffee date with the mystery woman?" "Jace, how did you know about that?" "Maya, I'm your sister. I know everything. Also, you've been different since the party. Happy nervous instead of sad resigned. Spill." Jace, later. Currently attempting not to panic. Maya, good panic or bad panic? Jace, yes. He pocketed his phone and Vivian raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? My sister has supernatural powers of perception. She knows I'm here. What did you tell her about me? That you're interesting and terrifying and I don't know what I'm doing. Accurate on all counts. Vivian checked her own phone and her expression shifted, professional mask sliding back into place. I have a meeting in an hour. Investor presentation that can't be rescheduled. Of course. But I don't want this to end. She said it quickly, like she was afraid the words would escape if she thought too hard. Can we do this again? The terrible coffee and honesty thing? V, I would like nothing more. Thursday? There's a gallery opening in the Arts District, abstract installations that most people will pretend to understand. We could pretend together and then get actual dinner somewhere. You're inviting me to a public event? She hesitated. Is that a problem? No, I assumed this would be, private, given your position. I'm tired of private. I'm tired of strategy. Vivian's eyes were fierce. If we're doing this, whatever this is, I want to try doing it honestly. No hiding, no apologizing, just present. Jace thought about Claire's engagement party, about standing in gardens alone while the world celebrated around him, about Nora asking why grown-ups stopped loving each other. Thursday works, he said. But, fair warning, I know nothing about abstract art. Perfect. We can make up interpretations and see who sounds more pretentious. They left Rosie's together, standing under the diner's awning while rain created curtains of gray. Vivian had arrived in a town car that waited discreetly down the block. Jace had his 12-year-old sedan with the check engine light that came and went mysteriously. This is the part where I'm supposed to kiss you, Vivian said quietly. In every romantic comedy I've never had time to watch. Is this a romantic comedy? I hope not. Those always end with someone sacrificing their dreams for love, and I'm not sure either of us can afford that kind of narrative. Jace smiled. Then maybe we write a different story. One where people don't have to choose between being themselves and being together. That sounds impossibly optimistic. I have a 6-year-old. Optimism is mandatory. Vivian leaned forward, not quite a kiss, but close enough that Jace could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. Thursday, she whispered. Don't change your mind. Not a chance. She walked to her car through the rain, not hurrying, not looking back. Jace watched until she disappeared, then stood for another moment under the awning, rain-damp and confused and more alive than he'd felt in years. His phone buzzed again. Maya. Well? Jace. I think I might be in trouble. Maya. Good trouble or bad trouble? Jace. I have absolutely no idea. Mount. The gallery opening Thursday night was everything Vivian had promised: pretentious, baffling, and oddly delightful. Jace arrived 15 minutes early, wearing his good suit again, and found Vivian already there, holding a glass of champagne and studying a canvas that appeared to be entirely navy blue. She wore black, simple dress, simple heels, but she'd left her hair down, and it softened her whole face. "What do you think it means?" she asked as he approached. "I think it means someone got paid a lot of money to paint a wall blue." "Shh, the artist is right over there." They spent an hour wandering through installations, making up increasingly ridiculous interpretations, laughing quietly like conspirators. Other guests recognized Vivian. There were double takes and whispered conversations, but she ignored them, keeping her attention on Jace and the absurd narratives they built around abstract shapes. "This one," he said, pointing to a sculpture made of twisted metal, "represents modern man's struggle with IKEA furniture instructions. Profound. The jutting angles definitely suggest existential frustration with wordless diagrams." A woman approached, elegant, 50s, wearing jewelry that could probably fund a small nation. "Vivian Cross, I thought that was you." Vivian's posture shifted subtly, the professional mask beginning to form. But then she stopped herself, deliberately relaxed her shoulders, and smiled with genuine warmth. "Margaret, how wonderful to see you. This is Jace Holloway, architect and my favorite art critic. Jace, Margaret Westfield. She's on the museum board and has impeccable taste in everything except her husband's golf obsession." Margaret laughed, clearly charmed. "I see you're taking time away from the office. Good. You work too hard." "I'm trying something new. It's called having a life." They chatted for a few minutes. Easy, genuine conversation. Margaret invited them to a charity auction next month. Vivian politely declined, and when Margaret left, she turned to Jace with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That was easier than I expected," she admitted. "Introducing you. Being public about this. Were you expecting it to be hard?" "I was expecting judgment, or gossip, or that particular smile people give when they think you're making a terrible decision but are too polite to say so directly." "Did you see any of that?" "No." She sounded almost surprised. "I saw curiosity, interest, maybe even approval." "Maybe people are rooting for you," Jace suggested. "Maybe they want to see you happy." "That would require them to see me as human instead of a quarterly earnings report." "Then maybe it's time to show them." They left the gallery after another hour, stepping into a cool evening that smelled like autumn and possibility. Vivian's car waited, but she waved it away, choosing instead to walk through the arts district with Jace, window shopping and talking about everything and nothing. At one point, she took his hand, casually, naturally, like it was the most normal thing in the world. At another, they stopped for gelato from a street vendor, and Vivian got chocolate on her nose, and Jace wiped it away while she laughed like someone who'd forgotten what laughter felt like. "This is dangerous," she said as they walked. "I'm getting used to this." "To you." "Is that bad?" "It's terrifying. I don't get used to people. I don't let them in. But you're—" She stopped walking, turned to face him under a streetlight. "You make me want to try. To risk it." Well, Jace thought about Nora, about the way she asked questions that required honest answers, about Claire walking away because the life they built together felt like a cage. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "Every relationship I've had ended with someone deciding I wasn't enough. And now I'm standing here with someone so far out of my league that we're not even playing the same sport, and I'm thinking, stop." Her hand came up to his chest. "You're not out of any league. You're the person who makes me remember I'm human. That's rare and more valuable than any board position or quarterly return." "Vivian, V, please. When you call me Vivian, I feel like I'm at work." "V." He covered her hand with his. "What happens when the world notices? When the headlines start and the questions come and your board starts asking about optics?" "I don't know, but I'm tired of making decisions based on fear of hypothetical disasters." She stepped closer. "I want to make one decision based on what actually makes me happy. Can we try that?" This time, when she leaned in, it was a kiss. Soft, questioning, real. Jace felt the world narrow to the point of contact, to the taste of chocolate gelato and expensive perfume, to the feeling of someone choosing him without reservation or strategy. When they pulled apart, Vivian's eyes were bright. Well, that was, yeah, very, absolutely. They stood there for a moment, smiling like idiots, before Vivian's phone shattered the moment with an aggressive buzz. She checked it, and her expression changed. I have to go. Emergency board call. Something about the Singapore acquisition. She looked genuinely disappointed. I'm sorry. This is exactly the kind of interruption I was trying to avoid. It's okay. You have responsibilities. Come with me. Jace blinked. What? Come with me. Sit in my office while I deal with this crisis. I'll order Thai food and you can judge my terrible corporate art collection, and afterwards we can watch a movie on my very expensive television that I've never actually used. She paused. Unless that's too much too fast. I'm aware I'm not good at normal pacing. Every rational instinct told Jace to say no. This was moving too quickly, into territory that felt dangerous and inevitable. But he looked at her face, at the vulnerability beneath the invitation, at the fear that he'd reject her like everyone else eventually did, and found himself saying, I need to call my sister, make sure she can stay with Nora. Vivian's smile could have powered a small city. Her apartment occupied the top floor of a building downtown, all floor-to-ceiling windows and carefully curated modern furniture that looked expensive and uncomfortable. But she led him past the formal living room to a smaller den with worn leather chairs and bookshelves packed with actual books, and it felt more human. This is where I actually live, she said, gesturing around. The rest is for show when board members visit. This is real. While she handled her conference call in the office, her voice sharp and commanding through the closed door, Jace explored the space. The books were eclectic. Biographies of corporate titans mixed with poetry collections, technical manuals next to literary fiction. Photos scattered on shelves showed a younger Vivian graduating college, standing with an older couple who must be her parents, holding up a trophy for something athletic. One photo showed her laughing with another woman, both of them covered in mud, clearly mid-adventure. When Vivian emerged an hour later, looking exhausted, she found him holding that particular photo. My college roommate, she explained. Emma. We went hiking in Scotland and got caught in the worst rainstorm either of us had ever seen. Spent 3 hours in a pub afterwards, drinking whiskey and swearing we'd never leave civilization again. You look happy. I was. Emma was the last person who knew me as just Vivian, not CEO Cross or the Acquisition Queen or any of the other headlines. She took the photo from him, studying it. We lost touch after graduation. She got married, had kids, moved to Portland. I sent Christmas cards for a few years, then stopped. It felt like, I don't know, like I was contaminating her normal life with my complicated one. Have you tried reaching out? What would I say? Sorry I disappeared for 15 years, want to reconnect? People move on, Jace. They build lives that don't include you. Or maybe they're waiting for you to remember they exist. She set the photo down carefully. You're very optimistic for someone who's been left multiple times. I'm optimistic because I've been left. If I let those experiences make me cynical, I teach Nora that pain is permanent and trust is futile. I can't do that to her. Vivian moved closer, wrapping her arms around him from behind, resting her head against his back. You're a good father. I'm a terrified father who's making it up as I go. That's what good fathers do. The bad ones pretend they have all the answers. They ordered Thai food and ate it directly from the containers while sitting on her expensive couch, watching a movie neither of them paid attention to because they were too busy talking. Vivian told him about her first acquisition, a small software company that everyone said would fail, that became the foundation of her empire. Jace told her about the first house he'd designed, how the clients had cried when they saw the finished plans because he'd understood exactly what home meant to them. At midnight, when Jace finally said he needed to go home, Vivian walked him to the elevator. Thank you, she said, for staying, for not treating me like I'm made of glass or ambition or quarterly projections. Thank you for letting me see the real version. When can I see you again? Vivian, V? We've seen each other 3 times in 5 days. This is too fast, I know. I'm not good at casual. She looked almost embarrassed. Every relationship textbook probably says to slow down, establish boundaries, maintain mystery. But I don't have time for games. I want to know if this is real or if it's just loneliness making us both stupid. Jace laughed despite himself. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm serious. I'm 38 years old. I don't have years to waste on maybe. Either this is something or it isn't, and I'd rather know sooner than later. What if it's something, but circumstances make it impossible? Then at least we'll know we tried. She kissed him again, longer this time, deeper, with the kind of intensity that suggested she'd spent years holding back and had finally decided to stop. Saturday, bring Nora. I want to meet her properly. V, I can't just introduce you to my daughter like someone who matters to you? Why not? Because she gets attached. Because if this ends, she'll ask questions I don't have answers to. Because I need to protect her from people who might hurt her. I understand. Vivian's voice was gentle. But Jace, you can't protect her from every potential pain. At some point you have to teach her that some risks are worth taking. He thought about that on the drive home, through quiet streets and yellow streetlights. About Nora asking why people stopped loving each other. About his own answer. Sometimes people are afraid to be themselves. What was he teaching her by hiding this? By keeping V separate from his real life, like she was something shameful instead of someone who made him feel alive for the first time in years? His phone rang as he pulled into his driveway. Maya. It's midnight, he answered. Shouldn't you be asleep like a responsible adult? Shouldn't you be home like a responsible father? Where have you been? Out with V. Oh my God, she has a letter name. This is serious. This is I'm creating plausible deniability for when you introduce her to the family. Serious. It's been 5 days, Maya. And? You're happy. You're energized. You're texting me about philosophical concepts instead of complaining about difficult clients. Whatever this is, it's working. It's terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? Both. She wants to meet Nora. Silence on the line. Then, wow. Okay, that's significant. I know. What did you say? I said I'd think about it, that I need to protect Nora from potential hurt. Jace, Maya's voice was serious now. You can't protect her from everything, and honestly, seeing you model a healthy relationship might be the best protection you can give her. This isn't healthy. It's barely existent. We've known each other less than a week. You've known each other long enough to recognize something real. Time is just a measurement, little brother. It doesn't validate or invalidate feelings. He sat in his driveway for another 20 minutes after ending the call, thinking about V's question. Either this is something or it isn't, and I'd rather know sooner than later. Finally, he pulled out his phone and typed, Jace, Saturday, 10 a.m. There's a farmer's market in the East District. Nora loves the kettle corn stand. If you're serious about meeting her, meet us there. Casual, low pressure. We'll see what happens. The response came immediately. V, I'll be there. Thank you for trusting me with this. Jace, don't make me regret it. V, I'll try my best. Fair warning, I have no idea how to talk to children. Jace, talk to her like she's a small, extremely honest adult. She'll appreciate it. V, I can do honest. It's the small part that intimidates me. Jace, you're one of the most powerful people in the city and you're intimidated by a 6-year-old? V, 6-year-olds can't be manipulated with quarterly earnings reports or strategic vision statements. It's terrifying. Jace, you'll be fine. Bring your honesty and a sense of humor. Everything else will follow. V, see you Saturday. I'm nervous. Jace, me too. Inside the house, Mrs. Chen had left a note saying Nora had gone to bed at 8:30 without protest, and the cat had knocked over a plant, but otherwise behaved. Jace climbed the stairs, checked on his sleeping daughter, her face peaceful, Mr. Whiskers curled at her feet, and stood in the doorway wondering what he was doing. Introducing V to Nora was a line being crossed. It meant this was real, significant, worth the risk. It meant he was choosing to believe that some people might actually stay. It meant he was choosing optimism over fear. And maybe that was the only choice worth making. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel possible. Jace woke early, made pancakes shaped like cats, Nora's current obsession, and tried not to check his phone every 30 seconds to see if V had changed her mind. Dad, you're being weird, Nora observed, drowning her pancakes in maple syrup. You keep looking at your phone like it's going to explode. I'm not being weird. You made the pancakes perfect. You only do that when something important is happening. She studied him with those two perceptive eyes. Are we meeting someone? There was no point lying. Nora had an internal radar for dishonesty that would make a polygraph jealous. Yes, someone I've been spending time with. Her name is V. V like the letter? Exactly like the letter. That's a weird name. It's a nickname. Her real name is harder to say quickly. Nora considered this while chewing thoughtfully. Is she nice? I think so, but I want you to decide for yourself. Does she like cats? I don't know. We haven't discussed cats specifically. Then how do you know she's nice? Cat opinions are very important character indicators. Nora said this with complete seriousness, as if she were quoting established scientific fact. You're absolutely right. We should add that to the evaluation criteria. They arrived at the farmer's market at 9:45, giving Jace 15 minutes to spiral into second-guessing his entire life. The market sprawled across 4 city blocks, vendors selling everything from organic vegetables to handmade jewelry to the kettle corn that Nora considered essential to her continued survival. Can I get some now? She asked, eyeing the stand, after we meet V. If you get sugar before the introduction, you'll be bouncing off walls and she'll think I have no parenting skills whatsoever. You don't have parenting skills. You have parenting panic and good intentions. Where did you learn to be this brutally honest? From you. You said honesty is the foundation of trust. I'm starting to regret that lesson. At 9:58, Jace spotted her. V stood near the entrance, wearing jeans and a simple cream-colored sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. She looked nervous, scanning the crowd like she was preparing for a hostile negotiation instead of meeting a 6-year-old. When their eyes met, her face transformed with relief. That's her, Nora said quietly. She looks scared. She is scared. Meeting you is important. Why? Because you're important to me, and if she matters to me, then she needs to matter to you too. Nora processed this with the gravity of a judge reviewing evidence. Okay, I'll give her a fair trial. That's all I ask. They walked over and Jace felt his heart doing gymnastics. V's eyes found Nora immediately, and something in her expression softened, not condescension, not the fake enthusiasm adults sometimes used with children, but genuine curiosity. Hi, V said, kneeling down to Nora's level. You must be Nora. I'm V. That's a weird name, Nora replied, because subtlety was not among her talents. It really is. My full name is Vivian, which is even weirder. My parents thought it sounded sophisticated. Does it? Mostly it sounds like I should be a character in a historical drama wearing uncomfortable dresses. Nora's lips twitched. Do you like cats? V glanced at Jace, who shrugged helplessly. I've never had a cat. I travel too much for pets, but I like the idea of cats. They seem very independent and honest about their feelings. Our cat is Mr. Whiskers. He judges everyone, but he's secretly very affectionate. He sounds perfect. I look forward to being judged by him someday. Nora studied V for another long moment, then apparently reached a verdict. Okay, you can come get kettle corn with us, but you have to share because Dad never buys enough. I buy plenty, Jace protested. You buy what you think is plenty, but you underestimate my kettle corn requirements. Nora took V's hand with startling casualness. Come on, the line gets long. V looked up at Jace, her eyes wide with something that might have been wonder. He smiled, and she smiled back, and they followed his daughter through the market like this was the most natural thing in the world. The next hour passed in a blur of normalcy that felt anything but. They bought kettle corn. V insisted on the largest size, earning Nora's immediate approval. They wandered through vendor stalls, Nora explaining her complex theories about which vegetables were objectively superior. V listened like she was receiving classified intelligence, asking follow-up questions that made Nora light up. At one point, Nora dragged them to a stand selling handmade journals, and V bought her one without being asked. A simple gesture that made Jace's throat tight. For your important thoughts, V told Nora. Every person deserves a place to keep their private ideas safe. Even kids? Especially kids. You're figuring out the world. That's important work. They found a bench near the community garden, and Nora ran off to examine a butterfly that had caught her attention, giving Jason V a moment of semi-privacy. "She's amazing," V said softly. "Jace, she's absolutely amazing." "She likes you." "How can you tell?" "She took your hand. She only does that with people she trusts." He paused. "And she hasn't asked you a single question about why you're here, which means she's already decided you belong." V's eyes were suspiciously bright. "I've negotiated billion-dollar mergers. I've faced down hostile board members and predatory investors, but the last hour might be the most terrifying and wonderful thing I've ever experienced." Welcome to parenting adjacent anxiety. Is it always like this? The fear that you'll mess up something important? Every single day. Nora returned, clutching a flower she'd picked from the garden. She handed it to V solemnly. "This is for you. It's called a black-eyed Susan. They're sturdy and they come back every year even when you think they're gone." V accepted the flower like it was made of crystal. "Thank you, Nora. I'll keep it somewhere safe." "You should press it in a book. That's what I do with important flowers." "That's exactly what I'll do." They stayed at the market for another hour. Then Nora announced she was hungry, and V suggested lunch at a nearby cafe that Jace had never been to but turned out to be perfect. Casual, friendly, with a kids' menu that didn't insult children's intelligence. Over grilled cheese and tomato soup, Nora asked the question Jace had been dreading. "Are you Dad's girlfriend?" V went very still. Jace started to intervene, but V held up a hand gently. "I'm someone who cares about your dad very much," she said carefully. "And I'm someone who would like to spend more time with both of you, if that's okay with you." "Why?" "Because your dad is one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And because you're one of the smartest, most honest people I've ever met. And because being around you both makes me feel like myself instead of like someone I'm supposed to be." Nora chewed this over along with her sandwich. "Okay, you can keep coming around, but you have to promise something." "What's that?" "If you're going to leave, you have to tell us first, not just disappear like some people do." The air went sharp and painful. Jay saw V's eyes flick to him, saw her understanding land with precision. "I promise," V said, her voice steady. "If I ever need to leave, I will tell you first. And I will tell you why. You deserve that kind of honesty." "Good." Nora returned to her sandwich like the matter was settled. "Can I have ice cream?" "If your dad says yes." "Dad always says yes to ice cream." "I do not always say yes. 92% of the time you say yes. I've been tracking data." V laughed, real, surprised, delighted. "You're tracking your father's ice cream approval statistics?" "I'm a scientist. Scientists need data." They got ice cream. Of course they got ice cream. Walking back to their cars later, Nora skipping ahead with her journal and her flower and her ice cream-induced energy, V touched Jace's arm. "Thank you," she said, "for this, for trusting me with her. Thank you for showing up, for being honest with her. That promise I made, about telling her if I leave, I meant it. For both of you. I know you did." She kissed him quickly, softly, then pulled back before Nora could turn around and witness it. "When can I see you again?" "V, you just spent 4 hours with us. And I want 4 more. And 4 after that." She smiled, almost embarrassed. "I told you I'm not good at casual. Tomorrow night, Nora has a sleepover at Maya's. I could make dinner. Nothing fancy, just whatever's in the fridge and conversation." "That sounds perfect." They parted ways in the parking lot, V heading to her town car that had been following at a discreet distance, Jace and Nora to his ancient sedan. "I like her," Nora announced as they drove home. "She listens like she actually cares about answers, and she didn't talk to me like I'm stupid. She's pretty great." "Are you going to marry her?" Jace nearly drove off the road. "Nora, we've known each other for a week." "So? You said when you know something's right, you know. Were you lying about that?" "I wasn't lying, but marriage is complicated. Everything's complicated if you think about it too hard. That's what you told me when I was scared to try soccer. Using my own wisdom against me. You're a dangerous human." She grinned, then turned serious again. "I hope she stays, Dad. You smile different when she's around." "Different how?" "Like you remember you're allowed to be happy." The words hit him square in the chest. Had he been that transparent in his sadness? Had Nora been watching him fade without knowing how to name it? I'm working on that, he said quietly. The being happy part. Good, because Mr. Whiskers and I prefer happy dad. Sad dad makes too much kale. That night, after Nora was asleep, Jace sat at his drafting table and pulled up his community center proposal. The submission deadline was in 2 weeks, and he'd been avoiding the final revisions, convinced he didn't have a real shot. But something had shifted. Meeting V, introducing her to Nora, seeing his daughter's approval, it reminded him that taking risks was how anything worthwhile happened. His phone buzzed. V, I can't stop thinking about today, about Nora handing me that flower like she was giving me something precious. Jace. She was. Nora doesn't give flowers to just anyone. V. I pressed it between the pages of the first book I ever bought myself. Poetry by Mary Oliver. Seemed appropriate. Jace. Poetry? I wouldn't have pegged you for poetry. V. There's a lot you don't know about me yet. I contain multitudes. And terrible taste in late-night television. Jace. Now I'm intrigued. V. Tomorrow night. I'll confess my trashy TV habits if you confess yours. Jace. Deal. Sunday evening, V arrived at his door wearing leggings and an oversized sweater carrying a bottle of wine and a bakery box. I didn't know what to bring to a casual dinner, she admitted. So I brought everything: wine, dessert, and irrational anxiety. The anxiety was unnecessary. The wine and dessert are perfect. His house was small, a 3-bedroom craftsman that needed updating but had good bones and a backyard big enough for Nora's imagination. V walked through it like she was studying architecture, running her hands along door frames and examining the way light fell through windows. This is a good house, she said finally. It feels like people actually live here, like it's been loved. It needs work. The kitchen's from 1987. The master bathroom has questionable tile choices, and the heating system sounds like it's harboring vengeful spirits. But it's home. Yeah, it is. They cooked together. Pasta with whatever vegetables Jace had in the fridge, improvised and imperfect. V proved surprisingly competent with a knife, and when Jace raised an eyebrow, she admitted she'd taken cooking classes in college. I thought it would make me more well-rounded. Turned out I just learned I'm very good at following precise instructions and terrible at creative improvisation. You're improvising fine right now. That's because you're here. You make me feel like mistakes are okay. They ate at his small dining table, drinking wine and talking about everything. Her brother in London, who called twice a year out of obligation. His sister, who called twice a day out of love. The strange mathematics of family loyalty. Do you ever resent her? V asked. Your sister, for needing you. Maya doesn't need me. She chooses me. There's a difference. I'm not sure I understand the distinction. Need is obligation. Choice is gift. Maya could go weeks without talking to me and be fine, but she calls because she wants to share her life. That's not burden, that's love. V was quiet for a long moment. I don't think anyone's ever chosen me like that. Everything in my life has been transactional. My parents chose divorce over discomfort. My brother chose distance over difficulty. My relationships all chose exit strategies over honesty. I'm choosing you, Jace said softly. Right now, this moment. Not because I need something from you, but because I want to know what happens next. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. That's the most terrifying thing you could say. Why? Because it means I might actually have something to lose. And they moved to the couch afterward, and V confessed her terrible TV habits, reality competition shows and cooking programs, and something called House Hunters International that she watched at 3 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. I like seeing people choose homes, she admitted. It's so simple. 4 walls, good light, proximity to schools. These basic requirements that equal safety and belonging. You've never felt that? Safe and belonging? I feel powerful, respected, even feared sometimes. But safe? She shook her head. Safety requires vulnerability. I built my life around eliminating vulnerability. What changed? You, sitting in a garden, talking to your sister like she hung the moon, looking at me like I was a person instead of a reputation. She turned to face him fully. I spent 15 years building walls, Jace. and you walked up to them carrying honesty like a key, and they just opened. He kissed her then, soft and slow, and she melted into him like she'd been waiting for permission. They stayed like that for a long time, trading kisses and quiet words, until V's phone erupted with an insistent buzz. She checked it, and her expression changed. "I have to take this. I'm sorry. It's fine." She stepped into the kitchen, and Jace heard fragments of conversation, terse, professional, the CEO voice she used when handling crises. When she returned 10 minutes later, she looked exhausted. "There's a situation. One of our subsidiary companies has a PR problem that's threatening to blow back on the parent organization. I need to—" She stopped, looking genuinely torn. "I don't want to leave." "But you need to." "I always need to. That's the problem." She gathered her things quickly, professionally. "I'll call you tomorrow?" "Of course." At the door, she turned back. "This was perfect. Dinner, conversation, just being normal. I want more of this." "Then we'll make more of this." "Even when my job constantly interrupts?" "V, I'm a single dad and a struggling architect. I understand that life doesn't pause for romance. We'll figure it out." She kissed him once more, fierce and quick, then disappeared into the night. Jace cleaned up dinner, loaded the dishwasher, and tried not to feel the emptiness of the house. His phone buzzed around midnight. "V. Crisis managed. Board placated. I'm exhausted and wish I was still on your couch." Jace. "Same couch, same offer, standing invitation." "V. Don't tempt me. I have 6 a.m. calls with London." Jace. "Then sleep. Dream about House Hunters International." V. "I'll dream about pasta and conversation and feeling human. Thank you for tonight." Jace. "Thank you for showing up." The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt both natural and impossible. V would text him at odd hours. 2 a.m. Thoughts about architecture, lunchtime photos of terrible corporate cafeteria food, evening confessions about meetings that made her want to quit everything and raise alpacas in Peru. They saw each other when they could, stolen lunches at Rosie's, late dinners after Nora's bedtime. One memorable Saturday afternoon at a museum where they made up stories about the paintings and got shushed by a security guard. Nora saw V 3 more times, and each time her approval grew more obvious. She started asking when V was coming over, started saving drawings and stories to show her, started talking about her like she was a permanent fixture instead of a maybe. "She's getting attached," Maya warned during one of their daily calls. "What happens when this falls apart?" "Why does it have to fall apart?" "Because she's a billionaire CEO and you're a single dad with a check engine light. Because her world is board meetings and private jets and yours is school pickup and grocery store budgets. Because fairy tales are called fairy tales because they're not real. You're supposed to be the optimistic one. I'm the realistic one who loves you and doesn't want to watch you break when this implodes." Maya's voice softened. "I'm not saying don't pursue it. I'm saying protect yourself. And protect Nora. Because when powerful people leave, they leave wreckage." Jace thought about that conversation while working on his community center proposal. The submission deadline was Friday, and he was racing to finish final renderings and cost estimates. At 11 p.m. Thursday night, he was still at his drafting table when his doorbell rang. V stood on his porch, wearing yoga pants and a hoodie, holding a bag from the Thai place they both loved. "I know it's late," she said, "but I was driving home from a disaster of a fundraiser and I passed this restaurant and thought about you and I wanted to see you. Is that crazy?" "Completely crazy." "Should I go?" "Absolutely not." He pulled her inside. "Nora's asleep. I'm drowning in architectural details. You're a perfect distraction." They ate Thai food at his drafting table, and V asked about his proposal with the kind of detailed interest that made him realize she'd actually retained everything he'd told her about the project. "Show me the final version," she said. He pulled up the renderings on his computer, walking her through his vision, the main atrium with its carefully angled skylights, the flexible gallery spaces, the community workshop areas designed for accessibility and creativity. V studied everything with intense focus, asking questions that pushed him to articulate choices he'd made intuitively. At one point, she grabbed a pencil and sketched something on his notepad. "What if you extended this roofline here? It would create more dramatic shadow play in the afternoon, and it echoes this curve in the main entrance. Visual continuity. Jace looked at her sketch, then at his rendering. She was right. It was a small change, but it elevated the entire design. That's brilliant. I minored in architecture in college, before I decided business was more practical. She smiled. This is what I would have done if I'd been braver. It's not too late. Yes, it is. I built a different life, made different choices. She set down the pencil. But I can appreciate yours, and maybe support it? I'm not offering to fix anything. I'm not suggesting I use my connections to guarantee you win this proposal. But I know the foundation board chair. And I could mention casually that I've seen your work and think it's remarkable. Nothing more than that. I don't want to win because of who I know. You wouldn't be. You'd win because your design is the best. I'd just be ensuring they actually look at it instead of dismissing it because you don't have an established portfolio. Jace wanted to say no, wanted to prove he could succeed on merit alone, but he thought about Nora, about building a career that could support her future, about the difference between pride and practicality. Casual mention only, he said finally. Nothing that suggests I'm connected to you in any way other than professionally. Agreed. She kissed him softly. I believe in you, Jace. In your vision. I want other people to see what I see. And what do you see? Someone who builds spaces for humans to be themselves. Someone who understands that architecture is about emotional safety, not just structural integrity. She paused. Someone who makes me want to be braver too. They made love that night, slow and careful, in his bedroom while Nora slept down the hall. Afterward, V traced patterns on his chest and whispered confessions about loneliness and fear and the strange vertigo of feeling seen. I've never done this, she admitted. Just showed up at someone's door because I missed them. How does it feel? Terrifying, perfect, like I'm learning a language I should have studied years ago. She left before dawn, kissing him goodbye and promising to text later. Jace watched her car disappear down his quiet street and felt the weight of something shifting, something significant and irreversible. Friday afternoon, he submitted his proposal with trembling hands and immediate regret. It was done. Either it was good enough or it wasn't, and no amount of revision would change that now. His phone rang. B. I just wanted to hear your voice, she said. Congratulations on submitting. How do you feel? Like I might throw up. That's how I felt after my first major acquisition proposal. Turned out fine. The nausea is just your brain processing the fact that you've done something brave. When will you stop being so good at making me feel capable? Never. It's my new favorite hobby. That evening, Maya came to pick up Nora for their standing Friday sleepover, and she studied Jace with sisterly scrutiny. You look different, she observed. Less like you're carrying the world alone. V's been helpful, supportive. I can see that. I can also see you're falling hard and fast, and I'm still worried. I know, but Maya, what if this is real? What if this is the thing I've been waiting for without knowing I was waiting? Then I'm happy for you. And I'll be here when it gets complicated, because it will get complicated. Powerful people always bring complications. She wasn't wrong. The complications arrived the following Tuesday in the form of a phone call from a number Jace didn't recognize. Mr. Holloway, this is Richard Chen from the Riverside Community Foundation. I'm calling about your proposal. Jace's heart stopped. Yes? We were very impressed with your submission. In fact, we'd like to invite you to present to the full selection committee next week. Does Thursday at 2 p.m. work for your schedule? Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I should mention, we've had some very positive feedback about your work from influential community members. Your reputation is clearly growing. After he hung up, Jace sat very still, processing. He'd made the shortlist. He had a real chance. His phone buzzed immediately. V. I heard. Congratulations. You're going to be amazing. Jace. How did you already know? V. Richard Chen's wife serves on one of my foundation boards. Word travels fast in small circles. But Jace, you got this on merit. Your design stood out. I just made sure they looked properly. Jace. Thank you. V. Thank me by crushing that presentation. Show them what I already know, that you're brilliant. He wanted to bask in the moment, to celebrate this unexpected possibility. Instead, he felt the first tremor of something darker, the awareness that V's world and his were colliding in ways he couldn't fully control. The presentation Thursday went better than he dared hope. He spoke about community, about accessibility, about creating spaces that welcomed instead of intimidated. The committee asked sharp questions, and he answered with confidence he didn't know he possessed. Walking out, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he had a shot. That evening, he took V to dinner to celebrate, a small Italian place where they knew him and didn't care about her reputation. They shared pasta and wine and easy conversation, and for a few hours the world felt simple. Then V's phone rang. She checked it, and her expression changed. "I need to take this," she said, already standing, already shifting into CEO mode. She stepped outside, and Jace watched through the window as her body language transformed, rigid, commanding, controlled. When she returned 15 minutes later, she looked shaken. "There's going to be a story," she said quietly. "A reporter has been following me, has photos of us together. My publicist is trying to kill it, but what? But it's going to run. Tomorrow morning, CEO's secret romance or some equally invasive headline." She met his eyes. "I'm sorry. I thought I was being careful. V, we've been to public places. We weren't hiding." "I know, but I underestimated how much people care about my personal life, how much they feel entitled to it." "What does this mean?" "It means tomorrow, your name will be attached to mine in a very public way. It means people will have opinions and questions. It means your life is about to get significantly more complicated." Jace felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What about Nora?" "She won't be mentioned. I made sure of that. But Jace," V's voice cracked slightly, "I'm sorry. I should have prepared you better. Should have warned you what being with me might cost." "You're not a cost. You're a person I care about." "I'm both. And I'm starting to realize I should have been honest about that from the beginning." The article hit Saturday morning. Not as bad as feared, but invasive enough. Photos of them at the market, at restaurants, speculation about how long they'd been together, and whether this was serious. The comment section was predictably vicious. Gold digger accusations, trophy boyfriend speculation, concerns about V's judgment and professionalism. Jace's phone started ringing. Unknown numbers, old colleagues, even his ex Claire, calling to ask if he'd seen the article. Maya showed up at his door by noon, Nora in tow, her face tight with worry. "Have you read the comments?" she asked. "No, and I'm not going to." "Good, because they're awful. People are awful." She hugged him hard. "How are you really?" He stopped, looking at Nora. "Can you go play in your room, sweetheart? Aunt Maya and I need to talk about grown-up stuff." After Nora left, he collapsed onto the couch. "I don't know. V warned me this might happen, but reading my name in a headline about being someone's mystery man feels surreal." "What did she say?" "She apologized. Multiple times. Offered to issue a statement denying everything if I wanted distance." "Do you want distance?" "No, but I'm terrified about what this means for Nora, for my career, for everything I've built." His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw the article, size. "Interesting choice of companion. Hope it doesn't affect your professional reputation. Former client." The implication was clear. Association with V was being evaluated, measured, judged. Another text, this one from V. "I'm handling this, please trust me. I won't let this destroy what we're building." But that was the problem, wasn't it? She couldn't control this. Neither of them could. The weekend passed in a blur of ignored phone calls and careful conversations with Nora about why sometimes adults made the news even when they didn't want to. Monday morning, Jace received an email from one of the firms he'd interviewed with 6 months ago. "Given recent publicity around your personal life, we've decided to pursue other candidates for the associate position. We need team members who maintain professional discretion." He read it 3 times, feeling sick. V called immediately, like she had some sixth sense for disaster. "What happened?" he told her. "I'm going to destroy them," she said, her voice sharp with fury. "I'm going to call their senior partners and explain exactly what kind of discriminatory—" "No." "Jace, no. You can't fix this by being powerful. That's exactly what people fear. That I'm with you for access, for leverage. If you intervene, you prove them right. Silence. Then, quietly, so what do we do? I don't know. They met that night at her apartment, and V looked smaller somehow, diminished by guilt and helplessness. I'm poisoning your life, she said. Everything I touch becomes complicated and public and dangerous. You're not poison. Then what am I? Because right now I feel like the worst thing that ever happened to you. Jace pulled her close, felt her trembling. You're the person who made me remember what hope feels like. You're the person Nora trusts. You're the reason I submitted that proposal instead of giving up. And now that proposal might be contaminated by association with me. The foundation board, they'll see the articles. They'll wonder about my influence. She wasn't wrong. He'd been worrying about the same thing. Then we face it, he said, together, honestly. We don't hide and we don't apologize for caring about each other. What if that's not enough? Then at least we'll know we tried. But trying felt harder with each passing day. More articles appeared, deeper dives into their relationship, speculation about his finances, questions about whether V was compromising her professional judgment. A board member called her, expressing concerns about optics during sensitive merger negotiations. An architectural colleague texted Jace, "Brave move, man, or stupid, time will tell." Even Nora noticed the tension. "Is V okay?" she asked one night. "She seems sad when she visits now. She's dealing with some difficult work stuff, sweetheart." "Is it because of you?" The question landed like a punch. "Why would you think that?" "Because people at school were talking. Emma's mom saw something on the internet about you and V. She told Emma I should be careful about getting too attached." Jace felt rage and helplessness in equal measure. "Emma's mom doesn't know anything about our family or V. You understand that?" "I guess, but Dad, what if they're right? What if V leaves because it's too hard?" He had no answer that didn't feel like a lie. That Thursday, Jace received the call he'd been dreading. "Mr. Holloway, this is Richard Chen again. I'm calling about your presentation." "Yes?" "The committee was very impressed with your vision. However, some concerns have been raised about potential conflicts of interest, given your relationship with Ms. Cross, who maintains several professional connections with Foundation Board members. I can assure you, I believe you. Personally, I think your design stands on its own merit, but the optics are challenging. We need to table the decision for now while we review our ethical guidelines around these situations." After hanging up, Jace sat in his parked car outside Nora's school, fighting the urge to scream. His phone rang. "V. They called you too," he said, not a question. "Yes." "Jace, I'm so sorry." "Stop apologizing. This isn't your fault." "It is, though. My visibility, my connections, they're contaminating your opportunity. Everything I feared would happen is happening." "So what are you saying?" Silence stretched between them, heavy and dangerous. "I don't know," she finally whispered. "I just know I can't watch you lose everything because of me." They didn't speak for 3 days, the longest silence since they'd met. Jace threw himself into work, taking every small job he could find. Maya called daily, offering support and carefully not saying "I told you so." Nora asked about V constantly. "Is she coming over this weekend?" "I don't know, sweetheart." "Did you have a fight?" "No, we're just figuring some things out." Grown-ups always say that when they're about to give up. The accuracy stung. Friday evening, V appeared at his door without warning, her eyes red, her usual composure shattered. "I can't do this," she said. "I can't stay away from you. I've tried. I've told myself it's the right thing, the smart thing. But Jace, Her voice broke. "I miss you. I miss Nora. I miss feeling human." He pulled her inside into his arms and she collapsed against him. "An investor approached me," she said into his shoulder. Attractive, appropriate, from the right family and right circles. He offered a solution, a public relationship that would calm the board, erase the scandal, secure the merger vote. He called it strategic partnership. Jace went cold. "What did you say?" "I almost said yes." She pulled back, meeting his eyes. "Not because I wanted him, because I was terrified of costing you everything, terrified of being selfish. But then I realized accepting that offer would be the most selfish thing I could do. It would protect my company while destroying the only real thing I've built in years. What are you saying? I'm saying I choose you. I choose us, even if it's hard, even if it costs me. Her hands framed his face. But I need to know you're choosing the same thing, that you're not just trying to be noble while resenting me for the complications. Jace thought about the job he'd lost, the proposal in limbo, the whispers and speculation. He thought about Nora's question, what if V leaves because it's too hard? And he thought about V pressing Nora's flower in a poetry book, making pasta in his kitchen, confessing loneliness like it was a secret language only they spoke. I'm choosing you, he said, all of you. The brilliant CEO and the woman who watches House Hunters at 3 a.m. The complications and the honesty, all of it. She kissed him then, fierce and desperate and real. And somewhere in the distance, Jace's phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. But in that moment, wrapped around each other in his small house, they were just two people refusing to let fear win. The message that buzzed on Jace's phone came from Richard Chen at the Riverside Community Foundation, and the subject line read simply, "Urgent, please call." Jace pulled away from V reluctantly, his heart already bracing for more bad news. I need to check this. It's about the proposal. V's face went pale. Jace, just give me a second. He stepped into the kitchen and dialed, putting the phone on speaker so his hands would stop shaking. Richard answered on the first ring. Mr. Holloway, thank you for calling back so quickly. Of course. Your message said it was urgent. Yes. I wanted to reach you before the weekend. A pause. The committee has made a decision regarding your proposal. Jace felt V move closer, her hand finding his back, steadying him. We've decided to move forward with your design, Richard continued. The vote was unanimous. Your vision for the community center aligned perfectly with our mission, and frankly, the committee felt your approach was the most innovative and human-centered of all the submissions. The words didn't register immediately. Jace heard them, but they seemed to be happening to someone else, in some parallel universe where things actually worked out. What? You won, Mr. Holloway. We're awarding you the contract. Richard's voice warmed. I should clarify something that's been weighing on me. When I called earlier this week about tabling the decision, I wasn't entirely honest about the reason. The truth is, one board member raised concerns about your relationship with Ms. Cross, but the rest of the committee shut that down immediately. They felt that evaluating your professional work based on your personal life was not only unethical, but would set a dangerous precedent. Jace gripped the counter. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept. Say you'll build us something beautiful. Richard paused. And Mr. Holloway, for what it's worth, I hope you and Miss Cross find a way through whatever challenges you're facing. The world needs more people willing to choose honestly over convenience. After the call ended, Jace stood frozen in his kitchen, while V watched him with an expression caught between hope and fear. I got it, he said, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. They chose my design. Jace? Her voice cracked. That's incredible. You deserve this. They shut down the conflict of interest concerns, said it was unethical to judge my work based on my personal life. Something shifted in V's expression, relief mixed with something deeper, something that looked like possibility. Maybe the world isn't as cynical as we thought. Or maybe we got lucky this once. I'll take lucky. She pulled him close, and he felt the tension drain from both of them. I'm so proud of you. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped around each other in the small kitchen where they'd cooked pasta and made confessions and slowly built something that refused to break despite everything trying to shatter it. Nora's voice called from upstairs. Dad, is V still here? Can she help me with my art project? V pulled back, wiping her eyes quickly. I should go. You two need family time, and I've already... Stay, Jace interrupted. Please. Nora's been asking about you all week. And honestly, I don't want you to leave. Are you sure? Completely sure. They spent the evening helping Nora with her project, a mixed media piece about family that included drawings, magazine clippings, and a surprisingly philosophical written component about how families could be built instead of just born. I'm putting you in it, Nora told V matter-of-factly, gluing a photo she'd printed from Jace's phone onto her poster board. Because you're part of our family now. V went very still. Nora, are you sure? Family is people who show up and stay even when it's hard. You showed up, and you're staying, right? Yes, V said, her voice thick. I'm staying. Later, after Nora was asleep, V and Jace sat on his back porch, sharing a bottle of wine under October stars. She put me in her family project, V said quietly. A 6-year-old trusts me enough to claim me as family. She's a good judge of character, or she's setting herself up for disappointment. V, stop. Stop waiting for disaster. What if this actually works? What if we're building something real that survives the complications? She was quiet for a long time, staring at the stars like they held answers. I have a board meeting Tuesday. The merger vote is in 3 weeks. My advisors are going to push hard for me to address the personal life concerns before the vote. What does that mean? It means they'll want me to either go public with a statement positioning our relationship as serious and stable, or they'll want me to create distance until after the vote. She turned to look at him. Either option puts pressure on us. Either we're forced into public declarations before we're ready, or we're forced apart during a critical time. What do you want to do? I want to tell them all to go to hell and live my life without constant strategic calculation. She laughed, but it was bitter. But that's not realistic when 8,000 employees depend on my decisions. Then we do what we've been doing. We're honest. We don't hide, but we don't perform either. We just exist together and let people make of it what they will. That's incredibly naive. Maybe, but I'm tired of making decisions based on fear of other people's opinions. I just won a major contract despite the supposed conflict of interest. Maybe that's a sign we should trust that doing the right thing actually matters. V leaned her head on his shoulder. When did you become the optimistic one? I thought that was supposed to be my role as the powerful CEO who believes in market disruption and paradigm shifts. You taught me. You showed up in a garden and admitted you were lonely, and that was the bravest thing I'd ever seen. Now I'm trying to be equally brave. They stayed like that until the wine was gone and the temperature dropped enough to drive them inside. V stayed over, sleeping in Jace's bed while he held her close and tried not to think about all the ways this could still fall apart. The weekend passed in a bubble of almost normal. They took Nora to the park, made pancakes on Sunday morning, watched a movie that Nora chose, and that was far too juvenile for adults, but somehow perfect anyway. V laughed at the ridiculous plot points, made popcorn with exactly the right amount of butter, and fit into their small life like she'd always been there. Monday morning, reality crashed back in. Jace's phone lit up with an unknown number before dawn. He answered groggily, expecting a wrong number. Mr. Holloway. This is Jennifer Park from the Metro Journal. I'm doing a feature on your relationship with Vivian Cross and wanted to get your perspective on how you met, how serious things are, and whether you have any comment on the recent speculation about your influence on her business decisions. Jace sat up, suddenly wide awake. I have no comment. So you're not denying the relationship? I'm not commenting on my personal life to a newspaper. Goodbye. He hung up, his heart pounding. V was already awake, watching him with concern. They're escalating, she said, making it a story instead of just gossip. What do we do? I call my publicist. We get ahead of this. She was already reaching for her phone, already shifting into CEO mode. I should have done this weeks ago, controlled the narrative instead of letting it control us. By Tuesday morning, the story ran anyway. Not as invasive as it could have been, but invasive enough. Cross Dynamics CEO confirms relationship with local architect, read the headline, accompanied by quotes from V's publicist about respecting privacy, while acknowledging that yes, Ms. Cross was in a relationship, yes, it was serious, and no, it had no bearing on her professional judgment or the upcoming merger vote. The comments section exploded. Some supportive, many skeptical, others outright hostile. Jace made the mistake of reading them and immediately regretted it. Gold Digger finally gets his meal ticket confirmed. She'll drop him the second the merger goes through. This is just PR management. Imagine being so desperate you date a single dad with 0 prospects. He closed his laptop before he could read more, but the damage was done. The words burrowed into his brain, feeding every insecurity he'd been fighting. Maya called within minutes. Don't read the comments. Too late. Jace, those are strangers who know nothing about your life or your relationship. Their opinions mean less than nothing. Do they? Because they're saying everything I've been afraid of thinking, that I'm not enough, that this is temporary, that V will wake up and realize she could do better. Stop. Stop right now. Maya's voice was fierce. You are enough. You've always been enough. The fact that V chose you doesn't diminish her. It proves she has better judgment than everyone gives her credit for. But the doubts lingered, feeding on exhaustion and stress and the constant pressure of living under scrutiny. V's board meeting Tuesday afternoon lasted 4 hours. She texted him once during a break. This is brutal. They're treating our relationship like a liability that needs to be managed. He responded, I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just be there when this is over. I need you. When she finally showed up at his house that evening, she looked like she'd survived a war. Her eyes were hollow, her shoulders tight with tension, her usual composure fractured into visible cracks. They want me to break up with you, she said without preamble. Not permanently, just until after the merger vote. Create enough distance that investors stop questioning my judgment. Jace felt something cold and sharp lodge in his chest. What did you say? I told them no. I told them my personal life was not up for committee vote. She collapsed onto his couch. Then they presented data. Polling showing that 43% of shareholders have concerns about my recent behavior. Projections showing the merger vote could be close. Analysis suggesting that even a 5% swing could kill the deal. 8,000 employees, Jace. 8,000 people whose jobs and healthcare and retirement depend on this merger going through. And I'm risking all of it because I can't stand the idea of not seeing you for 3 weeks. Is that what they said? They didn't have to. The numbers spoke for themselves. She looked at him with devastation in her eyes. What kind of CEO am I if I put my personal happiness above my company's survival? The human kind. The kind who refuses to sacrifice everything for optics and strategy. That's easy to say when you're not responsible for 8,000 livelihoods. The words stung, even though he knew she didn't mean them as an attack. Because she was right. He didn't carry that weight, didn't understand the impossible calculations she faced every day. So what do you want to do? He asked quietly. I don't know. Her voice broke. I love you. I know we haven't said it yet, but I do. I love you and Nora and the life we're building. But I also love my company, the work we do, the people we employ, the impact we make. And right now, those two loves are in direct conflict. Jace sat down beside her, taking her hand. You love me? Of course I love you. How could I not? You make me feel human. You make me believe I deserve happiness beyond quarterly earnings. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But loving you might cost me everything I've built, and I don't know how to reconcile that. Then we find a third option, something that isn't either or. I've been trying to find that option for 2 weeks, Jace. I've run every scenario, considered every angle, and they all end the same way. Either I lose you or I lose my company. They sat in heavy silence, the truth settling between them like concrete. Finally, Jace spoke. What if we did create distance? Just until the vote. Not because I want to, but because I love you enough to give you space to do what you need to do. You do that? I don't want to. Every part of me is screaming no. But V, I've been thinking about what you said. About 8,000 employees. Those are real people with real families. If 3 weeks of distance means they keep their jobs, how can I be selfish enough to say no? V turned to him, her face stricken. That's the most loving thing anyone's ever offered me. And I hate it. I hate that this is the choice we're facing. So do I. But maybe that's what real love looks like. Not grand gestures and dramatic declarations, but hard choices and temporary sacrifices. 3 weeks, she whispered, just until the merger vote. And then? And then I don't care what the board thinks. I don't care about optics or shareholder concerns or strategic positioning. I choose you. Publicly, permanently, consequences be damned. Jace pulled her close, memorizing the feel of her, the smell of her perfume, the sound of her breathing. 3 weeks. We can survive 3 weeks. What do we tell Nora? The question landed like a punch. He'd been so focused on V's burden that he'd forgotten about his daughter, who just included V in her family project, who asked about her constantly, who'd finally let herself trust again. The truth, he said finally, that V has important work that needs her full attention for a little while, that she cares about us but needs to focus on something critical, that she'll be back. What if I can't promise that? What if this goes wrong and the board forces my hand and then you'll tell us, like you promised, Nora. You'll be honest and we'll deal with it together. He cupped her face. But V, you have to believe this is temporary. If you go into these 3 weeks thinking you're preparing to say goodbye, that's what will happen. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They held each other until Nora called from upstairs, asking if V was staying for dinner. And then V had to explain gently and honestly that she wouldn't be around as much for the next few weeks because of important work commitments. Nora's face fell. But you're coming back after. Yes, V said, even though her voice shook. I'm coming back. Promise? I promise. After V left, Nora climbed into Jace's lap and said, She's lying. Sweetheart, not about coming back. She means it right now, but grown-ups always mean it until they don't. Nora's eyes were too old, too knowing. Mom meant it too, and then she didn't. Jace had no response that wouldn't feel like another potential lie. The next 3 weeks were the longest of Jace's life. He threw himself into the community center project, meeting with contractors and engineers, refining designs and managing budgets. The work was demanding and exciting and completely failed to fill the V-shaped hole in his daily existence. They texted sporadically, careful messages that felt sanitized, stripped of the intimacy they'd built. V sent updates about meetings and negotiations. Jace sent photos of Nora and progress reports on the center. They avoided saying anything that might make the distance harder. But the absence echoed through everything. Jace would see something funny and reach for his phone to text her, then remember the agreement. He'd cook dinner and set out 3 plates before catching himself. He'd wake up at 3 a.m. and wonder if she was watching House Hunters International, alone in her expensive apartment, missing him the way he missed her. Nora noticed immediately. You're sad again, like before, V. I'm just tired, sweetheart. You're sad. You do that thing where you smile, but your eyes don't. Maya called daily, providing support and distraction. 2 more weeks. You can survive 2 more weeks. Can I? Because it feels like I'm drowning. That's love, little brother. It's supposed to feel like drowning. The question is whether you trust her to pull you back to the surface. He wanted to trust that. But late at night, alone with his doubts, he wondered if V was already building an exit strategy. If her board was convincing her that this sacrifice was proof the relationship was unsustainable. If she was realizing that life was simpler without him. The merger vote was scheduled for a Friday. Jace knew because the business news couldn't stop talking about it. Analysts predicted outcomes, pundits debated strategy, and somewhere in all that noise was V fighting for her company while he waited in the dark. Thursday night, his phone rang at 11 p.m. V. Hi, she said, and her voice was raw, exhausted, barely holding together. Hi. I miss you so much it's physically painful. I miss you too. Tomorrow's the vote. Either we get through this or we don't. But Jace, I need you to know, whatever happens, these past 3 weeks haven't changed anything. I still love you. I still want this. I'm still choosing you. Then why does this feel like goodbye? Silence. Then quietly, because I'm terrified. Because my board has been in my ear constantly about how much easier my life would be without complications. Because there's an investor who keeps making it clear he's available if I want an appropriate option. Jace felt his heart crack. Have you considered it? Every day. Her honesty was a knife. Not because I want him, because I'm exhausted from fighting. Because choosing you means choosing constant battle, and I'm not sure I have the strength. Then don't choose me. What? If being with me means you spend your life fighting, then don't do it. I love you too much to be your burden. You're not a burden. I'm a complication you don't need. Your board is right about that. My life is messy and public enough to create problems for you. And maybe the kindest thing I can do is set you free to find something easier. I don't want easier. Her voice broke. I want real. I want honest. I want to come home to someone who sees me as human instead of a quarterly projection. I want to help Nora with art projects and eat terrible diner pie and argue about architecture. I want you. But wanting isn't enough when the cost is this high. So what are you saying? Jace closed his eyes, feeling tears track down his face. I'm saying that after the vote tomorrow, you need to make a real choice. Not one based on temporary sacrifice or strategic thinking. A real choice about what life you want. And if that life doesn't include me, I'll understand. Jace, I mean it, V. I'll understand. And I'll be grateful for what we had, even if it couldn't last. The line went quiet, except for the sound of her breathing, ragged and pained. The vote's at 2 p.m., she finally said. I'll know by 5. Can I call you after? Regardless of what I decide. Of course. I love you. I love you too. That's why I'm giving you permission to walk away. After hanging up, Jace sat in the dark of his bedroom and let himself break. He cried for what they'd built and what might be ending. He cried for Nora, who'd opened her heart again only to potentially lose someone else. He cried for V, trapped between impossible choices, blamed no matter what she decided. Maya appeared at his house Friday morning without being called, took one look at his face, and pulled him into a hug. She's making her choice today, he managed. And what choice are you making? I already made it. I'm letting her go if that's what she needs. That's very noble and very stupid. I can't be the reason she loses everything, Maya. What if she loses everything by losing you? His sister pulled back, gripping his shoulders. Jace, you're so busy being selfless that you're not seeing clearly. That woman loves you. She put you in her calendar like an appointment and kept showing up even when it got hard. Don't make her choice for her by deciding you're not worth choosing. I'm trying to give her freedom. You're trying to protect yourself from rejection by rejecting her first. Maya's voice gentled. I know you're scared. I know every important person in your life has left, but V isn't them. Give her the chance to prove it. He wanted to believe that, but doubt had sunk its claws in deep, fed by 3 weeks of distance and the constant drumbeat of public opinion suggesting he wasn't enough. The afternoon crawled by with excruciating slowness. Jace picked up Nora from school, made her a snack, helped her with homework, all while his phone sat silent on the counter. At 5:15 p.m., it finally rang. He almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail so he could preserve this moment of not knowing, where both outcomes still existed in superposition. But he'd never been good at cowardice. V? The merger passed. Her voice was flat, emotionless, the CEO mask fully in place. 78% approval. Strong mandate. My board is pleased. That's good. Congratulations. There's something else. His heart stopped. Okay. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. All right. The investor I mentioned, Marcus Sterling, he approached me after the vote, offered exactly what you'd expect, a partnership that would look good on paper, calm the board, eliminate complications. He's attractive, appropriate, from the right circles. Being with him would make my life infinitely simpler. Jace felt his world collapsing. V, you said you'd listen. Her voice cracked slightly. I stood there looking at him, at this perfect solution to all my problems, and all I could think about was pancakes shaped like cats and terrible diner coffee, and a 6-year-old who put me in her family project. All I could think about was you. Hope fluttered weakly in his chest. What are you saying? I'm saying I told him no. I told him I was in love with a struggling architect who makes me laugh and challenges me and sees me as human. I told him that simple isn't what I want, real is what I want. And then I called an emergency board meeting. You did what? I called my board together and I told them the truth, that I'm in a serious relationship with you, that I have no intention of hiding it or apologizing for it, that if they can't accept that their CEO is a whole person with a personal life, then perhaps they need a different CEO. Jace couldn't breathe. What did they say? After the initial shock, they backed down. Turns out when you stop negotiating and start declaring, people respect it, or at least they stop pushing. She paused. I'm not saying it's over. There will be more comments, more scrutiny, more pressure. But Jace, I'm done letting fear make my decisions. I'm done choosing strategy over substance. Are you sure? No, I'm terrified. But I'm also certain that losing you would be the biggest mistake of my life. So I'm choosing the terrifying option that might actually lead to happiness. Her voice softened. If you'll still have me. If these 3 weeks haven't changed your mind. Change my mind, V. I've been miserable. I've missed you every single day. Nora asks about you constantly. The house feels empty without you in it. Then, can I come over? Right now? I'm already in my car. I left the board meeting and started driving before I called because I couldn't wait another second. Yes, please, yes. She arrived 20 minutes later, still in her business suit, but with her hair falling loose and her eyes bright with tears and hope. Jace met her at the door and pulled her inside, into his arms, into his life without reservation. I'm sorry, she whispered into his chest. I'm sorry for the distance and the doubt and almost choosing the easy path. You're here now. That's what matters. Nora's voice called from the stairs. V, is that you? Yeah, sweetheart. V's here. Nora appeared, her face lighting up with pure joy. You came back. I knew you would. Well, I hoped you would. I was like 60% sure. V knelt down, pulling Nora into a hug. I promised I would come back. And I keep my promises. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. They ordered pizza and watched a movie, the three of them piled on the couch like they'd done before the separation. But something was different now, sharper, more precious, earned instead of assumed. After Nora went to bed, V and Jace sat on the back porch again, under the same October stars. What happens now? He asked. Now we figure it out as we go. No more strategic planning, no more trying to control outcomes. We just live. Together. Honestly. Your board will adjust, or they won't. But I'm not making decisions based on their comfort anymore. She took his hand. I want to do this right, Jace. I want to be present for Nora, support your career, build something real. But I also need you to know that my job will always be demanding. There will be late nights and travel and emergencies. I can't promise simple. I don't want simple. I want you. Even with all the complications? Especially with the complications. They're proof you're real. She kissed him then, deep and certain, and Jace felt something settle in his chest, not the absence of fear, but the presence of choice. They were choosing this, choosing each other, choosing to believe that love was worth the risk. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. I'm assuming from your silence that good things happened. Should I start planning my maid of honor speech? He showed the text to V, who laughed. Your sister moves fast. She's protective and optimistic, and probably already has the speech written. What would she say in the speech? That you're the first person who made me believe in second chances. That watching you with Nora makes her believe in love again. That if you hurt me, she'll destroy you professionally and personally. All accurate. V leaned her head on his shoulder. I want to meet her, properly. And your parents. And anyone else who matters to you. You want to meet my family? I want to be part of your family, if you'll let me. Jace thought about Nora's project, about families being built instead of born, about V pressing a flower in a poetry book and learning to make pancakes and showing up even when it was hard. You already are part of it, he said. You have been since the moment you asked about kettle corn requirements. They stayed up late talking about the future. Not planning it, just imagining it. V mentioned a foundation initiative she wanted to launch, supporting emerging architects. Jace described his vision for more community-centered projects. They discussed Nora's education, holiday plans, whether Mr. Whiskers would ever accept V as a permanent fixture. At midnight, V said she should go home, but neither of them moved. Stay, Jace said. I know Nora's here, and we haven't talked about what that means, but stay. Sleep in my bed. Wake up here. Let's stop treating this like it's temporary. Are you sure? Completely sure. So she stayed. And in the morning, Nora found them in the kitchen making pancakes together, and her face split into the biggest smile Jace had ever seen. Does this mean V's staying for real now? If that's okay with you, V said carefully. It's extremely okay with me, but we need to establish some ground rules, such as pancakes must always be shaped like animals, no boring circles. Agreed. And Mr. Whiskers gets final approval on all major life decisions. That seems reasonable. And if you're going to be part of this family, you have to learn the secret handshake. V looked at Jace, who shrugged helplessly. There's a secret handshake? There is now, Nora said solemnly. I just invented it. It's very complex. They spent the next 10 minutes learning Nora's elaborate handshake, which involved at least 7 distinct moves and ended with jazz hands. V took it completely seriously, practicing until she got it perfect, and Jace felt his heart expand with something too big for his chest to contain. This was his life now, pancakes and handshakes, and a brilliant woman learning to be part of a family that chose each other daily. Later, after Nora left for a birthday party, V helped Jace work on community center details. She asked sharp questions, pushed him to defend choices, celebrated when he solved problems elegantly. Being with her made him sharper, braver, more himself. You're good at this, she observed, the collaborative part of design. You don't get defensive when challenged. I learned from dating someone who treats every conversation like a negotiation. I do not. You absolutely do, but I love it. It makes me better. She set down the plan she'd been studying. I want to do something, for us. A grand gesture that's probably premature and definitely terrifying. What kind of gesture? I want to take you and Nora on vacation. Somewhere warm and private where we can just be a family without cameras or commentary or board meetings. 2 weeks, over the holidays, just us. V, that's too much too fast, I know. But Jace, I've spent my entire adult life being careful and strategic and measured. And where did it get me? Alone in expensive apartments, watching other people's lives on television. I don't want to be careful anymore. I want to be reckless and generous and present. Jace pulled her close. Then let's be reckless. Let's take Nora somewhere warm and teach her to snorkel and build sandcastles and forget the rest of the world exists. Yeah? Yeah? She kissed him, smiling against his mouth. Fair warning, I'm probably going to be terrible at relaxing. I'll want to optimize beach schedules and research the best snorkeling spots and create detailed itineraries. And I'll tear up your itineraries and make you sit still and do nothing. That sounds perfect. They stood in his office, surrounded by architectural plans and dreams, and Jace felt certain of something for the first time in years. This was real. This was lasting. This was the life he'd been building toward without knowing it. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Mr. Holloway? This is Daniel Price from Architecture Today magazine. We're doing a feature on emerging architects who are changing how we think about community spaces. Your Riverside Community Center project caught our attention. Would you be interested in an interview? Jace looked at V, whose face had transformed with fierce pride. Yes, he said. I'd be very interested. After hanging up, V grabbed his face and kissed him hard. You're being recognized. You're getting the platform you deserve. None of this would have happened without you. No, it happened because you're talented and visionary and willing to take risks. I just witnessed it. Maybe opened a few doors. But Jace, this is your success. Own it. And for the first time, he did. He let himself feel proud instead of lucky, accomplished instead of grateful. He'd earned this through years of work and refusal to give up. That evening, they told Nora about the vacation plans, and she reacted with the kind of unbridled enthusiasm that only 6-year-olds could manage. Can we bring Mr. Whiskers? Mr. Whiskers would hate the beach, sweetheart. But what if he feels left out? We'll bring him a souvenir, a tiny beach hat. With holes for his ears? Absolutely, with holes for his ears. Later, after Nora was asleep, V stood in Jace's bedroom looking at the framed photos on his dresser. Nora as a baby, Maya's graduation, his parents' anniversary portrait. I don't have photos like this, she said quietly. My apartment has professional art and designer furniture, but no actual memories on display. Why not? Because memories require people to share them with, and I spent so long alone that I forgot to collect moments worth remembering. Jace wrapped his arms around her from behind. Then we'll start collecting them now. We'll fill your apartment with terrible tourist photos and Nora's art projects and evidence that you lived instead of just worked. I'd like that. They made love that night with a new kind of certainty. Not the desperate passion of early romance, but something deeper. A claiming, a choosing, a decision made and remade with every touch. Afterward, wrapped around each other in the dark, V whispered, "I'm scared this is too good, that the universe will notice and take it away. Then we'll appreciate it while we have it, every single day. No taking it for granted, no assuming it's permanent, just grateful for each moment." That's exhausting. That's love. She laughed softly. I'm still learning the language. Be patient with me. Always. The next weeks blurred together in the best possible way. V integrated fully into their lives, attending Nora's school play, helping with homework, learning to navigate the chaos of elementary school drop-off. She was awkward sometimes, uncertain about parenting norms and child psychology, but she showed up consistently with genuine effort. Jace's community center broke ground, and V attended the ceremony, standing beside him as he gave a speech about accessibility and belonging. The local news covered it, and this time, when reporters asked about their relationship, Jace answered honestly, "Yes, we're together, and yes, she's been incredibly supportive of my work." No apologies, no hedging, just truth. The Architecture magazine interview ran in December, featuring Jace's work and his philosophy about human-centered design. V framed it and hung it in her office, next to her own awards and accolades. "Look at us," she said, studying the wall, "building empires in completely different ways. Yours is more impressive. Mine has more zeros in the budget. Yours has more heart." She turned to him. "I think we balance each other." They flew to the Caribbean the day after Christmas, a small island with white beaches and clear water and blessed anonymity. For 2 weeks, they were just another family on vacation. They taught Nora to snorkel, built elaborate sandcastles, ate fresh fish, and drank rum punch while watching sunsets. V proved terrible at relaxing, just as predicted. She wanted to optimize their beach time and research the best restaurants and plan activities with military precision. So Jace stole her phone, hid it in the hotel safe, and forced her to simply exist. "This is torture," she complained on day 3. "This is healing," he corrected. By day 7, she'd stopped twitching for her phone. By day 10, she was napping on the beach like it was her job. By day 14, she looked 10 years younger, the constant tension finally drained from her shoulders. "I forgot what it felt like," she said on their last evening, watching Nora chase waves. "To just be. No performance, no strategy, no constant calculation. You could feel like this more often. Make it a priority instead of a vacation luxury. With your help, maybe I can." They returned home to snow and reality, but something had shifted. The distance that had once felt insurmountable now felt manageable. V spent 3 nights a week at Jace's house, and he spent 1 at her apartment. They split holidays between families, navigated schedules with increasing skill, learned to communicate through the chaos. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments about time management, disagreements about parenting approaches, moments of frustration when work demanded too much attention. But they fought fair and apologized honestly and chose each other repeatedly. In February, V's brother visited from London. Thomas Cross was everything Jace expected, polished, reserved, viewing the world through a lens of strategic advantage. He studied Jace like a business proposal, clearly uncertain what to make of his sister's romantic choice. Over dinner at an expensive restaurant that made Jace deeply uncomfortable, Thomas finally spoke his mind. "I don't understand you," he told Jace bluntly. "What you want from my sister? What you could possibly offer someone of her caliber?" "Thomas," V said sharply, but Jace held up a hand. "He's not wrong to wonder. On paper, I'm nobody. A struggling architect with a kid and a mortgage and no trust fund." He met Thomas's eyes. "What I offer your sister is the ability to be herself. No performance, no calculation, just human. If that's not valuable enough for you, then we probably don't have much else to discuss." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "That's the first honest thing anyone said to me in months. Everyone in our world negotiates constantly, positioning for advantage. You just stated facts." "I learned it from V. She values honesty above almost everything else." "She learned that from you," Thomas corrected. "The V I knew before you was all performance. You've changed her, made her softer, more real." He paused. "I'm not sure whether to thank you or warn you about the responsibility that comes with that." "Both probably," V interjected. He's taking on a lot by choosing this family. But Jace looked at this brilliant, complicated woman who pressed flowers in poetry books and learned secret handshakes and showed up for school plays and felt no burden at all. Only privilege. Only choice. Only love. The call came on a Tuesday morning in late March while Jace was reviewing structural engineering reports for the community center. His phone displayed a number he didn't recognize, and he almost let it go to voicemail before something made him answer. Mr. Holloway, this is Patricia Morrison from Channel 7 News. We're running a story tonight about conflicts of interest in public funding decisions. Specifically, we're investigating whether your relationship with Vivian Cross influenced the Riverside Foundation's decision to award you the community center contract. Would you care to comment? Jace felt his stomach drop. There was no conflict of interest. My proposal was evaluated on its merits by an independent committee. But Miss Cross does have connections to several foundation board members, correct? And you began your relationship before the contract was awarded? Our relationship had nothing to do with the selection process. The Foundation's own records show we've received documents suggesting otherwise. An email chain between Ms. Cross and Richard Chen discussing your proposal. Text messages indicating she advocated for your design. Would you say this represents an ethical breach? His hands went cold. Where did you get those documents? We protect our sources. But Mr. Holloway, the public deserves to know if taxpayer-supported projects are being awarded based on personal relationships rather than professional merit. We go live at 6. I'd encourage you to provide your side of the story. She hung up before he could respond. Jace sat frozen, his mind racing through implications. Yes, V had mentioned his work to Richard Chen, casually, as promised. Yes, she'd looked at his portfolio and provided feedback, but there had been no pressure, no strings pulled, no inappropriate influence. The committee had made their decision independently. Hadn't they? He called V immediately. She answered on the first ring, her voice already tight with tension. You've heard, she said. It wasn't a question. Channel 7 just called. They have emails, text messages. They're running a story tonight about conflicts of interest. I know. They called me an hour ago. Jace, I'm so sorry. Someone leaked internal communications to make it look like I pressured the Foundation into choosing you. Did you? The silence stretched too long. Did you pressure them? He repeated, his voice hard. I mentioned your work to Richard. I told him I'd reviewed your portfolio and thought it was exceptional. I suggested he give your proposal serious consideration. She paused. But I never demanded anything. Never implied there would be consequences if they didn't choose you. It was a professional recommendation, nothing more. But you didn't disclose our relationship. No, I didn't think... She stopped. That was a mistake. I should have been transparent about our connection, should have recused myself from any discussions about the project. Jace closed his eyes, feeling everything they'd built start to crumble. They're going to destroy me. They're going to say I slept my way into this contract. I won't let that happen. How? How are you going to stop a news story that's probably already been written, already fact-checked, already approved for broadcast? I'll issue a statement, clarify the timeline, explain that my involvement was minimal and professional. V, it doesn't matter what you say. The story is that I'm a nobody who got a major contract because I'm dating a billionaire. Truth is irrelevant when the narrative is this compelling. Then we fight it. We release the committee's deliberation records. We show that your design was chosen unanimously, that board members praised your vision independently. And when they ask why you were involved at all, when they point out that you should have disclosed our relationship from the beginning, Jace's voice cracked. There's no good answer, V. We made mistakes, and now I'm going to pay for them. We're going to pay for them. This isn't just your problem. Yes, it is. You'll survive this. You're Vivian Cross. You've weathered bigger scandals. But me? I'm a small-time architect whose credibility just evaporated. No one will trust that I can win projects on merit. Every future contract will be questioned. Every success will be attributed to your influence. That's not true, isn't it? Be honest. If we weren't together, would you have called Richard Chen? Would you have looked at my portfolio? Would you have suggested he consider my proposal? She was quiet for too long. That's what I thought, Jace said bitterly. I believed in your work. That part was real. But you only knew about my work because we were sleeping together, and that taints everything, whether we want it to or not. The news segment aired at 6 o'clock. Jace forced himself to watch. Nora safely at Maya's house, his hands gripping the couch cushions like they could anchor him through the coming storm. The reporter was professional and damning, laying out facts that looked incriminating when stripped of context. Vivian Cross, billionaire CEO with extensive foundation connections, began dating struggling architect Jace Holloway. Weeks later, Holloway won a competitive contract for a publicly funded community center. Internal communications showed Cross had advocated for Holloway's proposal to the selection committee chair. Neither had disclosed their relationship during the evaluation process. They interviewed Richard Chen, who looked uncomfortable but confirmed that yes, Ms. Cross had spoken highly of Mr. Holloway's work. No, he hadn't been aware of their romantic relationship at the time. Yes, in retrospect, that should have been disclosed. They showed Jace's proposal alongside competitors, bringing in an independent architect to evaluate the designs. The expert admitted Jace's vision was innovative, but questioned whether it was sufficiently superior to justify selection over more established firms. The implication was clear. Without V's influence, Jace wouldn't have won. His phone started ringing immediately. Reporters, colleagues, people he hadn't spoken to in years suddenly interested in his story. He ignored all of it, sitting in the dark of his living room, feeling his career disintegrate in real time. V appeared at his door an hour later, her eyes red, her professional composure fractured. "I've drafted a statement," she said without preamble, "taking full responsibility for the ethical breach, clarifying that you had no knowledge of my communications with the Foundation, offering to fund an independent review of the selection process." That makes it worse. How? Because it positions me as either complicit or clueless. Either I knew you were pulling strings and let you, or I was too naive to recognize what was happening. Both options make me look incompetent. Then what do you want me to do? I want you to go back in time and not make that call to Richard Chen. I want you to have been honest from the beginning about our relationship. He stopped, his voice breaking. "I want to have earned this on my own. Without questions, without doubts, without wondering if I'm actually talented or just well-connected." "You are talented. Jace, your design was brilliant. The committee saw that." Did they? Or did they see recommended by Vivian Cross and decide it was safer to agree with you than risk your displeasure? Richard Chen isn't like that. The committee isn't like that. Everyone is like that when the stakes are high enough. You taught me that yourself. Jay stood, needing distance. I've been kidding myself thinking I could succeed in your world, thinking our relationship could be separate from our professional lives. But it can't. Your influence touches everything, whether you mean it to or not. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe everyone was right. Maybe this was always unsustainable. Two people from completely different worlds, trying to build something that requires both of us to compromise who we are. V flinched like he'd struck her. You're breaking up with me because of a news story? I'm facing reality, something I should have done months ago. Reality is that we love each other, that we've built a life together, that Nora considers me family. Reality is that being with you means I'll never know if I succeeded because I'm good or because I'm yours, and I can't live with that uncertainty. Then we'll be more careful. I'll recuse myself from anything involving your work. We'll establish clear boundaries. It's too late for boundaries. The damage is done. Every project I work on now will be questioned, every contract scrutinized, and you— He looked at her, seeing the pain he was causing. You'll spend your life defending your judgment, explaining why you're with someone who looks like a liability. You're not a liability. I am now. She moved toward him, desperate. Jace, please, don't do this. Don't let fear and other people's opinions destroy what we've built. Mapu, what we've built is compromised. Can't you see that? The Foundation is now questioning their decision. My professional reputation is in tatters, and it's only going to get worse. We can fight this together. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of defending our relationship to strangers. I'm tired of wondering if I'm dragging you down or if you're propping me up. He forced himself to meet her eyes. I think you should go. You don't mean that. I do. This isn't working. It was never going to work. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but her voice stayed steady. What about Nora? The question destroyed him. I'll tell her the truth, that sometimes caring about someone means letting them go. That's a lie you tell children to make endings sound noble. The truth is, you're scared. You're choosing self-protection over trust. Maybe, but I'm also choosing reality over fantasy. We were never going to last, V. We just got caught up in the possibility and ignored the inevitable. She stared at him for a long moment, and he watched her transform. The vulnerability shuddered, the CEO armor sliding back into place, the woman he'd first met in the garden returning, polished, controlled, untouchable. If that's what you believe, then I can't fight it. Her voice was ice now, all warmth extinguished. I won't beg someone to choose me. I've done that before and I promised myself never again. V, I hope you find what you're looking for, Jace. I hope choosing pride over love gives you the certainty you need. She walked to the door, then turned back. But know this, I loved you. Completely, honestly, without strategy or calculation. And you're throwing that away because you're too afraid to believe you deserve it. Then she was gone, the door closing with devastating finality. Jace stood in his empty house, surrounded by the life they'd built together, and felt the full weight of what he'd just done. Her coffee mug still sat on the counter from this morning. Nora's latest drawing, featuring all three of them as superheroes, hung on the refrigerator. A book V had been reading lay open on the couch. Evidence of integration, of family, of the future he'd just destroyed. His phone buzzed. Maya. Tell me you didn't just do what I think you did. How did you? V called. She's crying so hard she could barely speak. She asked me to tell Nora that she's sorry. Maya's voice was sharp with fury. What the hell, Jace? I ended it. I had to. Because of a news story? Because people are questioning your success? Because being with her means I'll never know if I earned anything on my own. Because I can't keep dragging her down with my inadequacy. That is the stupidest, most self-sabotaging thing I've ever heard. Maya's voice cracked. That woman loves you. She fought her entire board for you. She integrated into our family, and you're throwing it away because you're scared. I'm being realistic. You're being a coward. You're doing exactly what you're afraid she'll do, leaving before you can be left. Breaking it yourself so it hurts less. It doesn't hurt less. Good. Maybe pain will teach you something. She hung up and Jay sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. His phone kept buzzing with messages, reporters, colleagues, former clients all wanting statements or explanations. He ignored them all, sitting in the wreckage of his choices. At 8 o'clock, he had to pick up Nora from Maya's. His sister answered the door with a look that could strip paint. She's in the playroom. And Jace? You're going to break her heart. I hope you have a good explanation ready. Nora was building something elaborate with blocks, her face scrunched in concentration. She looked up when he entered, and her smile faded immediately. What's wrong? Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something. Is it about V? Aunt Maya got a phone call and she looked really sad and then she wouldn't tell me why. Jay sat down beside her, gathering courage he didn't possess. V and we've decided to stop seeing each other. Nora's face went carefully blank. Why? It's complicated, adult stuff about work, and that's not an answer. Why are you breaking up? Because sometimes caring about someone means making hard choices. And right now, V and I need to focus on our separate lives. You promised. Her voice was small, broken. Both of you promised you wouldn't just disappear. You said if you were going to leave, you'd tell us why. And it's complicated, isn't why. Nora, was it because of me? Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. This has nothing to do with you. Then what? Because yesterday everything was fine and today it's not, and you're giving me fake answers like I'm too stupid to understand real ones. Jace felt his heart crack. His daughter deserved better than platitudes and protection from truth. There's been some news stories, he said slowly, about V and me. People are saying that I only got my community center project because V has important friends. They're saying I didn't really earn it. Did you earn it? I think so, but now I'll always wonder. And I can't live with that uncertainty. Nora processed this with the gravity of someone much older. So, you're breaking up with V because other people have opinions? It's more complicated than that. No, it's not. You're scared. You're doing the thing you always tell me not to do, letting fear make your decisions. She stood up, her eyes bright with tears and anger. "You told me that people who love you stay even when it's hard. You told me that endings should be honest, but you're lying to yourself and you're lying to me, and I hate it. Nora, I want to go home, and I don't want to talk about it anymore." The drive home was silent, Nora staring out the window with her arms crossed, radiating hurt and disappointment. Jace tried several times to restart the conversation, but she shut him down each time with increasingly elaborate silence. At home, she went straight to her room and closed the door. Not slammed. That would have been easier. Just closed it with devastating quietness that said more than any tantrum could. Jace stood in the hallway feeling like the worst father in the world. His phone rang. An unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Mr. Holloway, this is Marcus Sterling. I'm an investor and board member of Cross Dynamics. We've never met, but I wanted to reach out regarding the recent news coverage." Jace's blood went cold. This was the man V had mentioned, the appropriate option her board had pushed. "What do you want?" "I want to offer some perspective. I've known Vivian for several years. She's brilliant, driven, and deeply principled. What happened with your project wasn't corruption or favoritism. It was Vivian doing what she always does, recognizing talent and trying to give it a platform." "That's kind of you to say, but I'm not being kind. I'm being strategic. You see, Mr. Holloway, I've watched Vivian build an empire while systematically isolating herself from anything resembling human connection. She convinced herself that power and success were sufficient. Then she met you, and something changed. She became softer, more present, more herself." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the board is meeting tomorrow to discuss the situation. And there's pressure, significant pressure, to position this scandal as evidence that Vivian's judgment is compromised, that her personal life is affecting her professional decisions, that she needs to choose between her relationship and her company." Jace felt sick. "I already ended the relationship." "I know." She told the board this evening, positioned it as her decision, protecting the company from further damage. Sterling paused. "But Mr. Holloway, I've seen the way she looks when she talks about you. And I saw her face tonight when she made that announcement. She's devastated." "Again, why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of watching brilliant people sacrifice happiness for optics. Because the world has enough lonely, successful people. And because Vivian Cross deserves better than a life sentence of strategic isolation." His voice hardened. "So here's what I'm proposing. Tomorrow's board meeting will determine whether this scandal becomes a career-defining crisis or a temporary setback. I can help minimize the damage, but only if you're willing to stand beside her, publicly, permanently. Show the board and the world that this relationship isn't a liability, but a partnership. And if I don't, then Vivian will survive because she always does. But she'll retreat back into the fortress she built. And the woman you fell in love with, the one who presses flowers in books and learns secret handshakes, will disappear forever, replaced by the CEO who can't afford vulnerabilities." After hanging up, Jay sat in his dark living room, Sterling's words echoing. He'd ended things to protect his pride, his professional reputation, his certainty. But what had he actually protected? The ability to wonder forever if he was good enough? The privilege of being alone with his doubts? His phone buzzed. A text from Richard Chen. "Mr. Holloway, I wanted to reach out personally. The Foundation is conducting a review of our selection process, and I want you to know that regardless of the outcome, I stand by our decision. Your design was exceptional. Ms. Cross's recommendation brought it to my attention, but the committee chose it based on merit. I hope you can find peace in that truth." Jace read the message 3 times, letting it sink in. V hadn't stolen this for him. She'd opened a door, but he'd walked through it with his own talent. He thought about Nora's words. "You're letting fear make your decisions." He thought about V standing in his kitchen, crying, saying she chose him even when it was hard. He thought about the life they'd built, messy and public and complicated and real. And he realized he'd made a catastrophic mistake. At 10 o'clock at night, he called Maya. "I'm an idiot," he said without preamble. "Yes, you are. Glad you finally figured it out. Can you watch Nora tomorrow? I need to fix this. It's about time." He spent the rest of the night drafting a statement, not defensive, not explanatory, just honest. About meeting V, about falling in love, about the ways their lives had intertwined professionally and personally, about making mistakes and navigating those boundaries, but never being dishonest about their intentions, about choosing to stand together rather than letting fear drive them apart. At 7 a.m., he called his contact at the Architecture Today magazine. I want to do a follow-up interview about ethics in architecture, about the blurred lines between personal relationships and professional opportunities, about owning mistakes while defending the work that speaks for itself. Oh, that's career suicide, Mr. Holloway. You'd be better off staying quiet and letting this blow over. I'm done staying quiet. Are you interested or not? They scheduled the interview for that afternoon. Next, he called his lawyer, a friend from college who specialized in construction law. I need advice on releasing committee deliberation records. I want full transparency on how my proposal was evaluated. Jace, that's unprecedented. You'll be exposing yourself to intense scrutiny. I'm already under intense scrutiny. At least this way people have facts instead of speculation. By noon, he'd contacted every committee member who'd evaluated his proposal, asking for permission to publish their individual assessments. Most agreed, some reluctantly, but all confirmed the same thing. His design had been chosen unanimously, praised for innovation and human-centered thinking. At 2 p.m., his interview with Architecture Today went live. He was candid about his relationship with V, about the mistake of not disclosing it earlier, about the genuine belief that his work had been evaluated fairly. He challenged the assumption that successful people couldn't also have meaningful personal relationships, that professional achievement had to come at the cost of isolation. The response was immediate and divided. Half the comments praised his transparency, half condemned his naivety. But at least he told his truth. At 4 p.m., he drove to Cross Dynamics headquarters. The receptionist looked startled when he arrived. Mr. Holloway, I'm not sure Miss Cross is available. Tell her I'm here. Tell her I was wrong. Tell her I'm fighting for us if she'll let me. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. But it wasn't V who emerged. It was Marcus Sterling. Mr. Holloway, interesting timing. The board meeting starts in 30 minutes. I know. That's why I'm here. Sterling studied him with calculating eyes. You understand what you're offering? To stand publicly beside Vivian will mean permanent association with her world. Your failures will be magnified, your successes questioned. There's no going back to anonymity. I don't want anonymity. I want her. Even if it costs you professionally? Especially then. Because being with her makes me better at everything. She challenges me, supports me, believes in me. That's worth more than an untarnished reputation. Sterling smiled, genuine, approving. She's in her office, top floor. I'll make sure security doesn't stop you. Jace rode the elevator with his heart in his throat. He had no plan beyond showing up, beyond choosing her the way he should have done from the beginning. V's office occupied a corner of the top floor, all windows and minimalist furniture. Her assistant stood when he approached. Mr. Holloway, I'm not sure. Please, just tell her I'm here. The assistant disappeared, returned a moment later. She'll see you, but Mr. Holloway, she's not in a good place. He found V standing at her windows, looking out over the city. She didn't turn when he entered. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice hollow. The board meeting starts soon. If they see you, it'll make everything worse. I don't care about the board meeting. I do. I care about my company, my employees, the work we do, and I can't let this scandal destroy all of it. Then let me help. Let me stand beside you and show them that this relationship isn't weakness, it's strength. She turned then, and he saw the devastation on her face. Eyes red from crying, makeup gone, the polished CEO armor completely shattered. You ended it, she said. You told me we were unsustainable, that I contaminated your success. You don't get to come back now and pretend those words didn't happen. You're right. I said terrible things. I let fear and pride make my decisions. He moved closer. But V, I was wrong. About all of it. You didn't steal my success. You helped me recognize my own worth. You didn't drag me down. You elevated me. And walking away from you wasn't protecting myself. It was destroying the best thing in my life. Pretty words. But words are easy when the stakes are low. The stakes aren't low. The board is meeting in 20 minutes to decide if this scandal ends your career. The press is watching every move. And I'm here anyway, asking you to give me another chance. To let me fight for us the way you fought for me. She shook her head, tears spilling. I can't. Jace, I can't go through this again. Can't open myself up only to have you run when it gets hard. I won't run. I promise. Because I finally understand what you've been trying to tell me, that love requires courage. That choosing each other means choosing it every day, especially when it's terrifying. How do I trust that? Because I'm here. Because I released my interview knowing it might end my career. Because I'm about to walk into your board meeting and make it clear that I'm not going anywhere. He took her hands. V, I love you. Not despite the complications, but including them. I love your brilliant mind and your terrible TV habits and the way you take Nora's art project seriously. I love that you make me want to be braver. And I'm sorry, so sorry, that I forgot that for even a moment. She searched his face, looking for lies, finding only desperate honesty. The board is going to crucify you, she whispered. Let them. As long as I'm beside you, I can handle anything. They'll question your motives, your integrity, everything. I know, and I'll answer honestly, the way you taught me. This is insane, completely insane. He pulled her close. But so is walking away from the person who makes you feel human. So is choosing loneliness over risk. So is letting fear win. She kissed him then, desperate and fierce and full of relief. When they pulled apart, her eyes were clearer, the devastation replaced with something that looked like hope. The board meeting, she said. I'm coming with you. Jace, they're going to be brutal. Then we'll be brutal back, together. They walked into the boardroom side by side, and the conversation died immediately. 12 people sat around an enormous table, and every single one stared at Jace like he was a bomb that had just rolled into the room. Marcus Sterling stood. Vivian, Mr. Holloway, this is unexpected. Good, V said, her voice steady, because I'm about to make some unexpected announcements. First, I'm withdrawing my offer to step back from my relationship with Jace. Second, I'm demanding full transparency about this board's attempts to manipulate my personal life for strategic advantage. And third, if anyone in this room has a problem with my choice to build a life with someone I love, they're welcome to resign. Silence. Then an older woman at the far end of the table spoke. Vivian, this isn't about controlling your personal life. It's about protecting the company from unnecessary scandal. No, Catherine. It's about whether you trust my judgment. About whether one relationship overshadows 15 years of proven leadership. V's voice was steel now. I've built this company from nothing. I've navigated hostile takeovers, market crashes, and countless crises. And you're suggesting that falling in love compromises my ability to lead? We're suggesting that the optics are temporary. Leadership is permanent. And if this board needs me to choose between being a CEO and being human, then perhaps you need a different CEO. The threat landed like a grenade. Cross Dynamics without Vivian Cross was unthinkable. Her vision, her connections, her strategic brilliance were the company's foundation. Marcus Sterling smiled. I, for one, think Vivian's point is valid. We've never questioned male CEOs whose wives attend functions and influence social connections. Why is this different? Because she advocated for his project, someone else argued. That's a clear conflict. Is it? Jay spoke for the first time, and every eye turned to him. Or is it a professional recommendation? V looked at my work and believed it had merit. She mentioned it to one person once, with no pressure or demands. The committee evaluated my proposal independently and chose it unanimously. Those are facts, supported by documentation I've made public today. You've made it public? Catherine looked horrified. Full committee deliberations, individual assessments, complete transparency. Anyone who wants to question whether I earned that contract can review the evidence themselves. Another board member leaned forward. That's professional suicide. You're inviting scrutiny. I'm inviting honesty, something V taught me. He looked at her, at the woman who'd taken a chance on being vulnerable. She showed me that truth matters more than perception. That integrity isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about owning them and moving forward honestly. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Marcus Sterling spoke again. I move that we table this discussion and return to actual business matters. Ms. Cross's personal life is her own, and unless someone can demonstrate actual harm to company operations, I see no reason to continue this conversation. I second, another board member said quietly. Catherine looked around the table, seeing the tide turning. Very well. But Vivian, understand that this scrutiny won't disappear overnight. You and Mr. Holloway will be watched closely. We're aware, V said calmly, and we're prepared to live transparently and honestly, the way we should have from the beginning. After the meeting, V and Jay stood in her office, processing what had just happened. That was terrifying, she admitted. That was necessary. They're going to watch everything we do now. Good. Let them watch us build something real. She laughed, shaky but genuine. You're insane. You just committed career suicide for me. I committed to truth. If that kills my career, it wasn't worth having. And Nora? Have you told her? Not yet, but I will. Tonight. And I'll apologize for being an idiot who almost threw away our family because I was scared. V pulled him close, resting her head against his chest. I'm still angry with you for ending it, for not trusting us. You should be. I was a coward. But you came back. You fought for us. I'll keep fighting, every day, for as long as you'll let me. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped around each other, choosing each other again despite everything that made it difficult. Outside the windows, the city spread out below them, millions of people making choices, taking risks, building lives from hope and courage and stubborn refusal to let fear win. And in that office, two people who'd found each other in a garden and almost lost each other to doubt stood together, ready to face whatever came next. Together. Honestly. Permanently. The hardest conversation still waited at home. Jace left V's office with promises to return that evening, to talk through next steps, to begin rebuilding what he'd nearly destroyed. But first, he had to face his daughter. Maya opened her door before he could knock, Nora's overnight bag already packed and sitting in the entryway. She's been in the guest room since you called, Maya said quietly. Won't talk to me, won't eat, just sits there looking betrayed. I know, I have to fix this. Can you? Jace, she trusted V. She trusted you. And you broke that trust spectacularly. I'm aware. Maya's expression softened slightly. But you went back. You fought for it. That counts for something. He found Nora exactly where Maya described, sitting on the guest bed, staring at nothing, her small body rigid with hurt. Can I come in? He asked from the doorway. She shrugged, which he took as permission. Jace sat beside her, not touching, giving her space to be angry. I made a terrible mistake yesterday. Yeah. I let fear control me. Let other people's opinions matter more than the truth, and I hurt you and V because of it. You said you wouldn't do that. You promised grown-ups could love each other without stopping. I did promise that, and I broke my promise. I'm sorry, Nora. Sorrier than I know how to say. She was quiet for a long moment, then turned to look at him with eyes too old for 7 years. Did you fix it? I'm trying. I went to V's office today. Told her I was wrong. Told her I want to fight for us. Did she forgive you? I think so. But she's still hurt, and she has every right to be. Are you getting back together? If she'll have me, if you'll forgive me. Nora's face crumpled. I thought you were going to be like Mom, just deciding one day that we weren't worth the hard parts. The words shattered him. Jace pulled her close, feeling her small body shake with sobs she'd been holding back. I'm not like your mom. I made a mistake, but I came back. And I'm going to keep coming back, keep choosing you and V, even when it's scary. Promise? I promise. On everything that matters. She cried for a while, soaking his shirt, letting out the fear and anger and relief. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy, but calmer. Can we see V tonight? She's coming over for dinner, if that's okay with you. It's okay. But Dad? Yeah, sweetheart? Don't be stupid again. My heart can't take it. Deal. They drove home in comfortable silence, Nora's hand in his, a fragile peace settling between them. At home, she went upstairs to change while Jace stood in his kitchen, staring at the refrigerator covered in drawings and schedules and photos, the accumulated evidence of their life. V's coffee mug still sat in the sink from 2 days ago. He washed it carefully, set it in the drying rack, a small act of faith that she'd use it again. His phone buzzed. A text from Richard Chen. I saw your interview and the release documents. That took courage. For what it's worth, the foundation stands behind our decision. Your design deserves to be built. Another text, this one from the journalist who'd broken the original scandal story. Mr. Holloway, I'd like to do a follow-up piece. Your transparency changed the narrative. Would you and Ms. Cross be willing to sit for a joint interview? He forwarded the message to V with a question mark. Her response came immediately. Only if we do it together. No more hiding. Agreed. V arrived at 6:30 carrying takeout from the Thai place they loved, and a visible uncertainty in her posture. She stood on his porch like she wasn't sure she was still welcome, like the past 24 hours had erased months of integration. Jace opened the door wider. Come home. The words broke something in her. She stepped inside, set down the food, and wrapped her arms around him like she was afraid he might disappear. I'm still angry, she whispered. I know. And hurt. And scared this will happen again. I know, and I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But V, I can promise I won't run. Not again. Not ever. Nora appeared at the top of the stairs, and the three of them stood frozen for a moment, a family fractured and fighting to reassemble. Then Nora said, Did you bring pad thai? Of course I brought pad thai. What kind of amateur do you think I am? The kind who needs to relearn the secret handshake because you've been gone and probably forgot. V's laugh was watery, but real. You're absolutely right. I need a refresher course. They ate dinner on the living room floor, Nora between them, narrating her day with the kind of detail that only children could sustain. V listened like every word mattered, asked questions, laughed at the right moments. Slowly the tension eased, replaced by something that felt almost normal. After dinner, Nora retrieved her family project from her room, the one that included all three of them. I didn't take you out, she told V seriously. Even when I was mad at Dad for being stupid. Because family doesn't disappear just because things get hard. V's eyes filled. Can I add something to it? What? She pulled out her phone, showed them a photo she'd taken months ago, the three of them at the farmer's market, Nora holding kettle corn, all of them laughing. This one, if you'll let me. Nora studied the photo, then nodded. Yeah, that's a good one. That's us being real. While Nora carefully glued the photo onto her poster, V and Jace sat close on the couch, not quite touching, the air between them heavy with things unsaid. I released a statement this afternoon, V said quietly, about us. About the mistakes we made in not being transparent earlier and about our commitment to moving forward honestly. How was it received? Mixed. Some people appreciate the candor, others think we're delusional for staying together through this. She paused. There's going to be a shareholders meeting next month. I expect questions. What will you tell them? The truth, them that I'm in love with you. That it doesn't compromise my judgment, it clarifies it. That the board can accept my whole self or find a new CEO. V, you can't risk your company for what? For love? For authenticity? For refusing to live in strategic isolation? She turned to face him fully. Jace, I spent 15 years building an empire while systematically erasing anything that made me human, and I was miserable. Successful and miserable. If I have to choose between the company and this life we're building, I choose this. You shouldn't have to choose. Maybe not, but I'm prepared to if necessary. Jace took her hand, marveling at her courage. You're terrifying, you know that? Good. Someone needs to be the brave one in this relationship. They put Nora to bed together, taking turns reading her favorite story about a dragon who learned to be gentle. After she fell asleep, they stood in the doorway watching her breathe, this small person who'd trusted them with her heart. I can't believe I almost gave this up, Jace whispered. But you didn't. You came back. That's what matters. Downstairs, they finally had the conversation they'd been avoiding. V curled into the corner of the couch, and Jace sat facing her, ready to hear whatever she needed to say. I need you to understand something, she began. When you ended it, when you said being with me contaminated your success, that wasn't just rejection. That was confirmation of my deepest fear, that I'm too much, that my life, my work, my visibility makes me impossible to love without complications. Let me finish. I've spent my whole life being told I need to tone it down, be less ambitious, less visible, less myself. And I convinced myself that power was enough compensation for loneliness. Then you showed up and made me believe I could have both, that someone could love all of me, including the complicated parts. I do love all of you. But you panicked when those complications became real, when loving me meant facing scrutiny and doubt. And Jace, I need to know that won't happen again, because I can't survive another moment of believing I'm lovable only to have it snatched away. He moved closer, taking both her hands. You're right. I panicked. I let insecurity override everything we'd built, and I can't promise I'll never be scared again. But I can promise that next time fear shows up, I'll talk to you instead of running. I'll trust us instead of retreating into self-protection. How do I trust that? Because I'm here. Because I stood in front of your board and chose you publicly. Because I released documents that could have destroyed my career just to prove your belief in my work was justified. He paused. And because I'm asking you to marry me. V went very still. What? Marry me. Not someday, not eventually. Soon. Let's stop pretending this is temporary or uncertain. Let's choose each other permanently and show the world we mean it. Jace, that's insane. We just almost broke up 24 hours ago. Exactly. And we fought our way back. We chose each other over fear, over pride, over every practical reason to walk away. If we can survive that, we can survive anything. You're serious. Completely serious. I don't have a ring yet. I didn't plan this. But V, I love you. I want to build a life with you. I want Nora to know that families can be chosen and lasting. I want to stop living in the uncertainty of maybe and start living in the commitment of yes. She stared at him, tears streaming down her face. This is the most impulsive, terrifying, perfect thing you've ever said. Is that a yes? I need time. Not because I don't want to, I do. So much. But Jace, I need to know we can survive normal life, not just crisis and reconciliation. I need to know that 6 months from now, when the drama fades, and we're just dealing with scheduling conflicts and differing opinions about dishwasher loading, we still choose each other. That's fair. That's reasonable. He kissed her softly. But V, I'm going to ask you again and again, until you believe I'm not going anywhere. Good, because I need the repetition, need the proof. They spent that night talking through logistics and boundaries. V would spend 4 nights a week at his house, 3 at her apartment for early meetings and work demands. They'd established clear separation between their professional lives. No more project discussions without transparency, no more blurred lines that could be misconstrued. They'd do couples counseling, because trauma needed professional attention and they were both carrying enough wounds to warrant help. They'd tell Nora together when things got serious, involve her in decisions, make sure she knew her voice mattered. It wasn't romantic or spontaneous. It was pragmatic and careful, and exactly what they needed. The next weeks tested every boundary they'd established. The joint interview aired, and while it humanized their story, it also invited more scrutiny. Every date became potential content for gossip columns. Every professional success was questioned for possible influence. Jace's community center broke ground, and protesters showed up with signs about corruption and nepotism. He had to stand in front of cameras and defend his qualifications while V watched from the sidelines, unable to help without making it worse. V's shareholders meeting became a referendum on her personal life. She faced hostile questions about judgment and professionalism, had to defend her right to a relationship while managing billions in assets. But they survived, not because it was easy, but because they'd learned to communicate through difficulty. When Jace felt insecure about professional achievements, he told V instead of spiraling. When V felt overwhelmed by board pressure, she called Jace instead of retreating. Therapy helped. Their counselor, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, gave them language for their patterns. Jace's tendency towards self-sabotage, V's habit of compartmentalizing emotions. She taught them to fight fair, to repair ruptures quickly, to build trust through consistency rather than grand gestures. Nora thrived with the stability. V taught her about business and leadership, treating her insights seriously. Jace taught V about play and presence, about the value of unscheduled time. They became a unit, imperfect but integrated. 3 months after the scandal broke, something shifted in the public narrative. An architectural critic wrote a piece praising Jace's community center design. noting that his innovative approach to accessibility had influenced how other architects thought about public spaces. The article never mentioned V, just evaluated his work on merit. The Riverside Community Center opened 6 months later on a Saturday in early October. The building was everything Jace had envisioned: light-filled spaces that invited instead of intimidated, circulation patterns that made sense intuitively, materials that felt warm and welcoming. V stood beside him at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, and when the mayor asked Jace to say a few words, she squeezed his hand with fierce pride. "This building represents something I believe deeply," Jace told the gathered crowd. "That spaces should serve people, not impress them. That accessibility should be elegant, not an afterthought. That community is built through careful attention to how people move, gather, and connect." He paused, looking at V. "I had help creating this vision. Support from someone who believed in the work before anyone else did. And yes, there's been controversy about that support. Questions about influence and favoritism. But here's what I know. This building was chosen by a committee who evaluated it fairly. It was designed by me, with my vision and my values. And it stands as proof that good work can survive scrutiny." The applause was genuine, warm. After the ceremony, families poured through the doors, children running between the installations while parents explored the gallery spaces. An elderly couple tested the accessibility features, delighted by the thoughtfulness. A community art class set up in the workshop area, exactly as Jace had intended. Nora grabbed both their hands, pulling them through the building. "Dad, look! People are using it exactly like you drew it. And V, see that curved wall? Dad said you helped him think about shadow patterns." V knelt down to Nora's level. "Your dad is brilliant. I just asked questions. He created the answers." "You're both brilliant. That's why we're a good family." That evening, they celebrated at Rosie's Diner, full circle from their first coffee date. Rosie herself brought out a special pie, winking at V. "About time you two figured it out. I was getting tired of watching you dance around each other." "We weren't dancing," V protested. "We were navigating complex interpersonal dynamics." "Same thing, honey. Just fancier words." After Nora fell asleep in the booth, her head on V's lap, Jace reached across the table. "I'm going to ask again." V smiled, knowing what was coming. "Ask what?" "Marry me. Not because we've survived scandal, or because it makes a good story, but because I want to spend every day choosing you. I want to make it official that Nora has 2 parents who love her. I want to stand in front of everyone we know and commit publicly, permanently, to this complicated, beautiful life we're building." She was quiet for a long moment, her hand stroking Nora's hair absently. Then she met his eyes. "Yes." "Yes?" "Yes, I'll marry you. I want to be your wife. I want to be Nora's mom. I want to build something permanent that survives scrutiny and doubt and every practical reason to quit." Jace felt his eyes burn. "When?" "Soon. Small ceremony. Just family and people who actually matter. No press, no performance, just truth." "Perfect." They told Nora the next morning over pancakes shaped like engagement rings. Jace's idea, executed poorly but with love. She looked at them seriously. "So V is going to be my stepmom?" "If that's okay with you," V said carefully. "Can I just call you Mom? I mean, I have a mother already, but she's not really around, and you are, so it feels more true." V's composure shattered completely. "I would be honored. But Nora, you should know, I'm going to make mistakes. I don't have maternal instincts or natural parenting skills. I'm going to mess up." "That's okay. Dad messes up all the time." "Hey," Jace protested, "it's true. But you fix it. That's what matters." Nora looked at V. "Will you fix it when you mess up?" "Always. I promise." "Then okay. You can be my mom." They planned the wedding for December, a small ceremony at the community center Jace had designed. The symbolism felt right, celebrating their commitment in a space built on his vision, supported by her belief, representing everything they'd fought to protect. Maya cried when they asked her to officiate. "I've been waiting for this since you met. I already wrote a speech, obviously." "Obviously." V's brother flew in from London, cautiously optimistic about his sister's happiness. He pulled Jace aside the night before the wedding. "I've never seen her like this. Thomas said. Settled, content, like she finally stopped running from herself. She did that on her own. I just gave her permission to stop performing. No, you gave her proof that being real was safe. That's rarer than you know. The wedding day arrived with snow and clear skies. They'd invited 30 people, family, close friends, the committee members who'd believed in Jace's work. Marcus Sterling attended, having become an unexpected ally and friend. V wore a simple dress, her hair down, no strategic styling or performance necessary. Jace wore his good suit, the same one he'd worn to Claire's engagement party, where this whole story began. Nora served as flower girl and ring bearer and self-appointed ceremony coordinator, ensuring everything happened exactly on schedule. Maya's ceremony was perfect, funny and honest and deeply loving. She talked about watching Jace rebuild himself after divorce, about V learning to be vulnerable, about Nora teaching both of them that family was choice and commitment. I've watched these two people fight for each other, Maya said. Through scandal and doubt and every practical reason to quit. They chose love over fear, truth over strategy, partnership over isolation. And that's what marriage should be, not a fairy tale, but a daily decision to keep choosing each other. When it came time for vows, Jace went first. V, you changed my life by sitting in a garden and admitting you were lonely. You taught me that vulnerability is strength, that honesty is radical, that love requires courage. I promise to keep showing up, even when I'm scared, to talk instead of running, to believe in us even when doubt whispers, to be your partner in building this complicated, beautiful life. V's voice shook, but her words were clear. Jace, you gave me permission to be human, to want things beyond quarterly earnings, to believe I deserved love without strategy or performance. I promise to keep choosing you over easier options, to fight for us instead of retreating, to be present for you and Nora with my whole self, to build a family on truth instead of transaction. They exchanged rings, simple bands that represented commitment without ostentation. When Maya pronounced them married, the kiss was soft and certain, witnessed by people who'd fought beside them. At the reception, Nora gave a toast that made everyone cry. I used to think families were just people who shared DNA, she said, reading from carefully prepared notes. But Dad and V taught me that families are people who choose each other every day, who show up when it's hard, who apologize when they mess up and mean it. I'm lucky to have parents who love me enough to be honest, even when honesty is scary. And I'm lucky they love each other the same way. The evening blurred into dancing and laughter and the kind of celebration that came from genuine joy rather than obligation. Jace watched V twirl Nora around the dance floor, both of them laughing, and felt complete in a way he'd never imagined possible. Marcus Sterling approached, glass in hand. You did good, Holloway, both of you. Thank you for everything. The board meeting, the support. You didn't have to do any of it. Yes, I did. The world needs more people willing to choose authenticity over convenience. You two are proof it's possible. Later, as the party wound down and Nora dozed on Maya's shoulder, V and Jace stood in the center of the community center, surrounded by the building he'd designed. We did it, she whispered. We survived everything and came out stronger. We're just getting started. I know, and that's terrifying and perfect. He kissed her, his wife, his partner, his proof that love was worth every risk. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Scotland, V's choice, honoring the memory of her college friend Emma, whom she'd reconnected with after 15 years. They hiked through rain and mud, laughed at their terrible attempts to navigate sheep-filled paths, spent evenings in pubs drinking whiskey and planning their future. Emma came to dinner one night, bringing her husband and teenage kids. She studied V carefully, then smiled. You're different, lighter, like you finally figured out who you wanted to be. I had good teachers, V said, reaching for Jace's hand. They returned home to real life, work deadlines and school schedules, and the beautiful mundane chaos of building a life together. V moved most of her things into Jace's house, though she kept her apartment for early meetings and occasional solitude. Jace took on more ambitious projects, his reputation recovering as his work spoke for itself. Nora thrived, her family project now featuring wedding photos and evidence of permanence. The scrutiny didn't disappear entirely. There were still occasional articles questioning their relationship, still board members who viewed V's marriage as a liability. But the volume decreased, replaced by other scandals and newer stories, and they learned to live through it, to focus on the life they were building rather than the commentary surrounding it. 1 year after the wedding, V launched her foundation initiative supporting emerging architects. The first grant went to 3 young designers whose work showed innovation and vision, evaluated by an independent committee with full transparency about V's involvement and careful boundaries around conflict of interest. Jace served on the advisory board, helping establish criteria for selection. It felt full circle, using the complications they'd faced to build something better, creating opportunities while honoring ethics. At the first grant ceremony, one of the recipients asked V about her journey. How do you balance everything? Career, family, public scrutiny? How do you not lose yourself? V looked at Jace, at Nora sitting in the front row, at the life they'd built from courage and honesty. You stop trying to balance, she said. You integrate. You bring your whole self to everything and trust that authenticity is worth more than perfect optics. You choose people who see you completely and love you anyway. And you fight, every day, to protect what matters most. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. 2 years after they met, Jace and V stood in the backyard of their home. No longer just his house, but theirs, renovated to accommodate their combined lives. They were hosting a barbecue, family and friends scattered across the lawn. Maya and her new girlfriend commandeered the grill. Thomas and his partner visited from London. Emma and her family drove up from Portland. Nora ran through the yard with other children, secure in the knowledge that her family was permanent, that the adults in her life had chosen each other and meant it. V leaned into Jace, watching the scene with contentment. Remember when you asked what I saw in you? He said quietly. Back at the beginning. You said I saw someone who built spaces for humans to be themselves. You gave me the same gift. You built a space, not physical, but emotional, where I could be fully myself, scared and brave, flawed and trying, enough exactly as I am. We built it together, she corrected. That's the whole point. Neither of us could have done this alone. Mister. Whiskers wound between their feet, having finally accepted V as a permanent fixture after 2 years of skeptical observation. She picked him up and he tolerated it with feline resignation. I think he might actually like me now, she said. Don't get cocky. He's just manipulating you for treats. Still counts as affection in cat language. Nora ran over, breathless and grass-stained. Mom, can I tell everyone the story about when you and Dad met? Everyone wants to hear. V smiled at the word mom, still new enough to make her chest tight. What version of the story? The true one. About Dad being sad at a party and you being lonely in a garden and both of you being brave enough to talk honestly. That's a good story, Jace said. Tell it however you want, sweetheart. They watched Nora gather the children, settling in to narrate their family's origin story. She told it with dramatic flair, emphasizing the scary parts and the choosing parts and the family being built parts. And as the sun set over their backyard, over the life they'd fought to create, Jace turned to V. No regrets? Not a single one. You? Just that I almost walked away. That I let fear nearly destroy this. But you came back. That's what matters. You chose courage over safety. He kissed her, soft and certain, tasting the future they were building. Not perfect, not simple, but utterly, completely real. In the gathering darkness, surrounded by people who loved them, Jace Holloway and Vivian Cross stood together. 2 people who'd met in a garden during someone else's celebration and built their own. 2 people who'd learned that the greatest risk was refusing to take any. 2 people who'd discovered that love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about choosing someone real and fighting to keep choosing them. The story that began with loneliness and confession ended with laughter and belonging, with a family built on honesty rather than biology, with a community center that welcomed instead of intimidated, with a marriage that survived scrutiny through commitment to truth. And as stars appeared overhead and Nora's storytelling voice drifted across the lawn, they knew this wasn't an ending at all. It was just the latest chapter in a story they'd keep writing together, messy and public and complicated and beautiful for the rest of their lives. Under soft evening light, Jace took V's hand, and for the first time in years, both of them felt completely, permanently chosen.